Right.
Fits in with the
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
block
Right.
machinery.
Oh, look at him up high.
Is Tom coming tonight or no?
Yes.
I do.
I like
I'm just wondering if I gotta create some space.
Right, here we are. Good evening and welcome to the joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee on Tuesday, January 21st. Today's agenda, we're going to, Fincom's going to quickly discuss, I need a vice chair, so we're going to talk about nominating someone for vice through the rest of this year, so next 6 months, anyway, 5 months. We're also going to discuss real quickly a Fincom invoice approval process, and then we're going to get right into our briefing. So we will be on time. We gave your slot a little bit extra time. And then other than that, we will adjourn. So without further ado, let's talk about Fincom chair, vice chair nominations. So
I nominate Betsy.
okay.
It's a good discussion.
I'd second.
We have
It sounded like a defensive nomination.
Very aggressive nomination. Go right to it.
all right. Well, motion's been first and second. Any discussion or any other nominations?
Can I just say,
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge Fred. Fred was on this committee for over 30 years. He's probably the most knowledgeable person here. And so we're going to miss him a lot, especially with all the change in town. I think missing his knowledge and so on. So I did want to say that he didn't walk away voluntarily. So
Well, let's try to get him back. Let's see what we can do. So thank you. So first and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
I know.
Aye.
Turn two.
Sounds like it's unanimous. So welcome.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you for stepping up. All right, on to the Fincom invoice approval process. So real quickly, this is about when one of us attends a training wherever and we have an invoice. So one of us attended. It's Cheryl and Anita were just discussing how we should, as a board or an individual on the board, should sign off on those just to see that, yes, we're aware that it was. And it's just more another part of our transparency and also kind of double checking on all of these things. So I don't think it shouldn't go to a quorum type situation, in my opinion. I think that this is something probably the chair, I'll get it, and if it looks like it needs discussion, I'll bring it up in the meeting, but if not, I'll just sign off on it. And obviously the finance director signing it as well. So, and if it's me that does the training, then I'll obviously maybe have vice chair or someone else on the board sign, so it's timely. I don't want to tie it up, until the next month just to get something like that pushed through. Any questions? Does that sound like something we can do? I don't think we need to do a motion, but I think
Well,
that,
when we had training, the email usually would come out, this is available, and if we
Yeah.
want to go, we just sign up for it.
right. It's
So
just after the
It's
fact,
just
yeah.
really formalizing it, and that's all you're really doing here, right?
Yeah, the finance side, so once you go and then the bill comes in, the invoice,
Right.
we just have to make sure that we're signing it and the signing, make sure that everything's in order. Okay, that works.
You did a motion for that? Do we need a motion for this, or is this just more procedural?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel you.
All right, let's do it.
Make a designation.
So then, I'll make a motion that the chair signs off on any training invoices for the board, any board members that attend. And in the event the chair goes, the vice chair will sign off.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's our new.
Easy.
Thank you. And I know I have one that needs to be signed, so we'll get that during the meeting. All right, let's move right in to what we're here for mainly today. And we do have our chair, Joe Knox, will be here. He's running a little bit late,
Yep.
so. Let's call up the historical commission. Let's talk budget. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Do you introduce yourself? 'Cause I know everybody's. Not everybody.
So I'm Andrew Samarco.
the vice chair of the commission, Melinda Stein.
Thank you. All right. Well, this is on page 150 if you have your books, so we can discuss what you bring to the table today. So if you have, go ahead. You can open up.
So, good evening, everyone. First of all, the commission would like to thank the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen for previously supporting our efforts to have a dendrochronology study performed over at the Baker House on Robinson Road. We really appreciated that, and the results were pretty good. Secondly, let's see, we also appreciate the Selectmen's support of our National Registry of Historic Places application for the same building. We just wanted to put that out there. We really appreciated that. Okay, so we'll get into our budget next, proposed budget rather, for the upcoming fiscal year. Currently, the budget is totaling $4,480. And Linda, do you want to?
Yeah, as the original budget we submitted for this year was over 10,000, but in the past month, we were able to reduce the costs, $3,000. We had previously asked for a door for 12 Robinson. We're no longer asking for that because the town secured the current door. And we also, $2,750, we are going to apply for CPC for historic markers. So we have also deleted that from the budget, which brings it down to $4,480.
Well,
Why did you delete the historic markers?
Because it turns out we can apply for CPC funds for those. At first, we didn't think we could get CPC funds for those, but I did a fair amount of research, and we can apply for CPC funds for that.
just curious, the door for Robinson Road, is that just like something to be permanent, or is it more of a get us by?
No, it's more of a get by.
It's okay.
Yeah, the town had George go in and put on a little temporary block of wood with a latch. So in the future, yeah, and it's a very flimsy door, that particular door, which was unlocked for months.
Right.
Which was a little nerve-wracking. So in the future, we probably will want a new door, but I'm thinking that we might go to the CPC for that to get a real restoration of an old historic door rather than some new door. So.
Okay, good.
And if you want us to go through the items on the budget, we're happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in, so we're talking about the door and the Robinson Road and reparations to Robinson Road, although I certainly respect the fact that we're restoring this historic building, and I want to do whatever we can to do that. I think it was our intention, at least it was my intention, when we voted for the deed restriction, when we purchased and put the deed restriction on 12 Robinson Road, it was to look at cultural opportunities, looking for opportunities for us to use this building as a town, or to turn around and just put the restriction on it and sell the property. So I'm of the opinion that I don't want to put any more money into this. We just approved $60,000 to put a roof on it, which I'd love to have.
That was from the CPC, by the way.
Understood,
It wasn't town
understood.
funds.
But the town spent $60,000 on a piece, that's 25% of the property value. We spent $250,000 to buy the building, and we spent $60,000 to put a roof on it. So it's still funds that went into, from the town. However, we ended up getting those funds into the CPC funding. It's the opportunity to spend that $60,000 on something else will not be there. So I want to tread lightly when we talk about spending money on a building that we had some intention of putting it out to bid and having people bid on that auction the property now that the deed restriction is on it, and let them do the restorations and not we've secured the fact that it is a historical building and that it will be held to those standards, but I don't necessarily want to be putting the town on the hook for spending tens of thousands of dollars.
Just one clarification. Sure. Any money that, all of that CPC money is from the historic fund, so any money that we could use for other purposes, that money would also be for historic purposes.
Absolutely.
Just to make that clear.
So
absolutely. I wasn't trying to make that any different than that.
So that decision, I think, we're trying to make that somewhere in the spring or the summer, correct?
So, yeah, I mean, I didn't bring that up here because it's sort of not a budget issue. We're definitely going to be exploring options to sell it or to lease it. We would like to hold a public meeting fairly soon in the next couple of months to get public input and all board input from all the boards. And then once we have that input, have the town make a decision as to whether to sell it or lease it or what.
So outside of Robinson Road, I'm just trying to think of projects on your horizon that you're looking at, maybe in the next 24 months? What's in front of you as far as?
Well, other than what's on our budget?
I mean, for a big
Well-
item, I guess, is there are there big projects that you?
Well, this is probably beyond 24 months, but we would very much like to be involved in the revitalization of the town common. We think the Historic Commission and society could play a pretty important role so that the common has some character, maintains some character, doesn't become 5 McDonald's and, so we would very much like to be involved in that. And that would, might involve applying for grants for historic, grants and historic tax incentives to business owners. There's a variety of things that we could look at, but that is maybe beyond 24 months.
Yeah, okay.
If I may again, I think that's critical that you guys are included in that, because the Curtis septic sign brought us plenty of phone calls. So I mean, if we, and I'm gonna paint many people with the we, had done our diligence and created a tighter sign bylaw, we wouldn't have that sign. Curtis Septic is, from all accounts, a good business that's willing to be a good corporate citizen, and I've spoken with them, and I look forward to them being a contributing factor in our community. And they put up a sign that was within our bylaw. That's on us. We shouldn't have that bylaw. So maybe we're pushing from our side, and we get planning board and the historical commission. We're trying to retain and maintain a bucolic feel. I think it's important that we all are accountable for it and work towards that same goal.
That's something that could be done now.
It absolutely can be done now. It's something that we did a lot of work on trying to recreate a sign bylaw, and it got mothballed, put on the shelf. And so it's kind of a shame on the
It also
collective
should
us.
happen if we're going forward with form-based zoning, that should be a part of that also, because otherwise you're gonna have these nice, beautiful buildings and ugly signs, and it's
Correct.
gonna ruin the whole thing.
Yeah.
That brings up a question. I know we have the revitalization
The group?
committee. Does
Right,
the historical
no.
commission have a member on there? That's
No,
something
we
we
should do
absolutely
that.
have to address.
Right,
Yeah, we would love to be on that.
yes, that was definitely an oversight, that's,
I'm going to push back on that idea. I very much understand there are a lot of people who have a lot of interest in the common. The point of that was to really focus it on the infrastructure
Yeah.
components of
Well,
it.
that's good, important to know. Yeah.
But that said, it was not designed to be at the exclusion of other folks like, the Historical Commission, CONSCOM. All of these groups have important things to say here, and I think there are members within that group who can reach out and do it, but we wanted to keep that group as tight and as sort of infrastructure and regulation focused as possible, especially in the short term. Now, as we start to move forward into some of the zoning regs and things like that, I think the Historical Commission have a lot of opportunity to be involved.
Chase, are you referring to the sewer working group or the committee?
The
that Board of
Littleton
Select-
Common Revitalization
Committee
Committee.
that the board appointed?
Right, I mean, we
Yeah,
were
okay.
talking about housing, planning,
Yeah,
economic
okay.
development,
Right.
sewer,
Okay.
transportation.
All right, we got off a little bit, but thank you for that.
So while we're on the subject, is there a vehicle that we are, as a Board of Selectmen especially, presenting to the Historical Commission or the ideas? Perhaps one suggestion is that they get involved with the planning board's hearings on form-based
Right.
code and provide input in that direction?
Yeah.
I guess the other way to say it is if the board is looking for me to take another step with this to try to address the request of the Historical Commission, perhaps we should discuss it at another time.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously when you go through towns like Groton that took place with them, that the historical commission played a factor in any
Right.
work that they did in their in their common. You can feel it when you drive through that it's
Right.
historically correct, if you will.
So that was going to be my next question. Is anybody on your committee following along with the planning board with form-based code and the initiatives that they're?
Early, a few months ago, I and maybe, I know at least one, maybe more, went to the planning board meetings about form-based code, so we were educated about it. Recently, Anna, who's on the planning committee, I think she wants to go before all the boards, including our committee, to discuss what they're doing for the town common revitalization. So we're going to schedule her, but I would certainly support what Nina recommended having us maybe be more involved ongoing with the planning board or whatever.
Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan, sorry.
As long as the, as the whole, form-based code and so on was before the MPIC, I was or I still am, the representative of the Historical Commission on the MPIC. And so, I think I was participating in that. Now that is coming to be, a proposal, and the planning board has taken that over now, it's somewhat, the Historical Commission has had less involvement in it than we did before, but I think there are some important parts of that proposal that do include historic,
Sure.
our interest, historic interest. And I think the proposal has something about incentives for historic preservation, which allow people to do things that otherwise maybe they couldn't do in the common area, if I remember rightly.
Yeah,
So,
I think
we're trying to keep up with that, but it's sometimes a moving target a little bit to be sure you're on track with everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, one other thing, just Gary, sorry. One other thing, just for anyone who's, I'm on this kick right now, apparently. One other thing that I'd like to mention for the Historical Commission's purposes and any board or committees that are watching this evening is that the planning board is planning, I think, to have their last hearing on February 10th on form-based code. So please look out for the agenda for that. I believe it's at the police station, but it might be the fire station.
I think it's fire.
But please be on the lookout for that if any boards or committees are interested in participating and providing feedback for that subject.
Any questions related to historical, the budget?
Back to the numbers.
I think we're good. Thanks.
Do you guys want us to run through the numbers at all, or are you just?
No, I think, I mean,
I have one.
sure.
One thing, I wanted to just, so the $750 line item for the historic plaques on, some granite markers, are those the house markers? What is, oh, wait a minute.
It was crossed.
I'm trying to see where I have that on my.
No. Scratch that.
It was crossed off, right?
It's crossed off.
Yeah, no, never mind.
Okay.
What I wanted to do, I'm sorry, redirecting myself, the bulk mailing for education about the demolition bylaw and the commission programs. I think that's a great idea, and I just wanted to maybe ask you to share a little bit about the reason for that with the group.
So what sort of was the impetus for us to do that was there was something happened last year where one historic building in town got partially demolished, and by law the Historical Commission was supposed to be notified and we were supposed to comment on that, and it's a whole process that is supposed to be followed with the Historic Commission involved, and that never happened. We think it's important for that reason to educate historic homeowners and maybe realtors about what that demolition delay bylaw process is and what steps need to be followed. And then we decided if we're going to send out a bulk mailing about that, why not make it even more of a positive thing and let them know other programs that the Historical Commission and Society conduct, and so it would be a little bit broader, more
Educational
positive.
piece.
Yes, an educational piece, right.
I think that's important because the bylaw as written is, I mean, if you have a 50-year-old home, it's not terribly historic, it's just a home that was built 50 years ago. It still is subject to the bylaw, right, where you have to notify the Historical Commission. Pardon?
Yeah, I think the way it's written, I saw it.
Right, versus having a home that is registered.
Correct.
Or, that truly has been identified as a historic home. The birthplace of Joe Knox or something like that.
Well, it's
It's an old
definitely a
home.
differential, but I think that we have, the commission has identified those homes in Littleton, but it's just a matter of, as property turns over, the new owners might not really understand that it has been identified.
Right.
So just making sure that they do receive some written notification, I think it's important.
I think the
Overall.
education is a great piece.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Can I add something to what Cindy just said? Sometimes when people have come before, of course, they have to go to the building commissioner first, and then and then we take charges. They said, well, I didn't know this was historic. Even though they have an inventory form that's filed on it, and it, in some cases a quite, important property. And so we thought that by informing people through this letter that they lived in a historic home, they couldn't claim ignorance anymore. But we also want to encourage them to apply for the plaques, the house plaques that you talked about. We are working on a project, we are developing that further. Because there are a lot of people who have historic homes who might apply for these plaques, we decided to ask them to pay for the cost of them. So we haven't included that in the budget.
Well, it actually there is a very small item included, $130 for historic house signs. And the reason is, we want to, if a resident of the town claims financial need, that they can't afford a sign for $65, we wanted to at least have a couple of signs that we could provide to those people. That's why we have $130.
Okay. Great.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So before I call up the cemetery, real quickly, that just kind of, I couldn't put this on the agenda because it came in late Friday or Friday after or Thursday, I think, after I put in. The Littleton Common Revitalization Committee needs a Fincom representative, so I will throw that on the agenda probably on the February 1st Saturday, just to see if we have be thinking about it, something you're interested in, want to get involved in and be on that committee. We do need to appoint a member to that board. All right, cemetery.
I'm back up. Okay. So I might point out though that we posted for 6:30 p.m. our official meeting because we do have a quorum of the board here. So I don't know if we have to wait 4 or 5 minutes.
I would recommend it. If the board plans to deliberate in any way, I would recommend you wait. But if you don't plan to deliberate and you only plan to provide facts, then I don't see an issue.
Okay. Then we can proceed.
Don't deliberate for another 5 minutes.
All right. So, good evening. Casey, I guess introduce yourself to some of the board members that don't know you.
P.C. Bailey, Superintendent of Cemeteries here in Littleton. Pleasure to meet the ones of you that I don't know.
Thank you. Just so we can jump right in, where are we? We're on page
121.
121. All right, you can go ahead and start discussing.
So just a basic little rundown of how 2019 went. We had a total of 45 interments, and we sold $29,000 in lot sales, and opening fees were $25,625. And we operate with $17,800 for anything and everything from vehicle maintenance to grounds maintenance to supplies from the hardware store, building maintenance. We're asking for a slight increase in the grounds maintenance budget, an increase of $1,000, and also an increase of $1,500 in our vehicle repair and maintenance budget. And we're also asking for a seasonal employee to help with grounds maintenance during the summer months.
Did you quantify the seasonal employee? How much did you budget for that?
12.
We came up with a number of 12,000. And that's basically given the person a 40-hour week for what we imagine to be 17 weeks at the temporary seasonal employee step 1 rate, which the town is currently using.
Thank you.
And that's probably something that's going to be utilized going forward as well, so it's something we could probably...
Well, it was an existing situation at the cemetery department for years. I don't know exactly how and when it stopped, but it would definitely be helpful to bring it back.
All right. Do you have any more? Do we go to questions?
Yeah, we can just go to questions, yeah.
Okay. Anything for the cemetery?
Any capital? Are we talking capital at all?
We have some capital items for next year, but we want to get a more detailed scope of work for a job we want to put out to bid to expand an acre of cemetery space. And at that time, we may have a couple other smaller capital items that we put on there, but this year we just weren't ready to present all that.
But your building is okay now and so on, we're all set with that?
The building doesn't have any major emergencies going on. There are some minor repairs that could be done. I put a perimeter drain in the front, which stopped some water that was coming into the ground floor in severe rains. That seems to have stopped, but there is some drywall that could be replaced, but we don't have prices on that yet.
I think last year you, I thought you had a mower or vehicle that you had put on. It didn't come back on, because I don't think you got it, did you?
We did.
You did, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, right now we have 3 mowers.
Okay.
And there's really no need to add another one.
Okay.
Especially if you don't get seasonal help.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna ask the question about the seasonal help. So 17 weeks, I'm assuming you're looking at seasonal help that would be able to help you during the summer months, but also when I'm assuming it's gonna be a college kid or something like
Yeah,
that.
if it were a college kid.
And then you could also get them to do some help with snow removal, that kind of thing in the winter months as well. Because 17 months, I mean, they're not home from school for 17 months.
17
Weeks,
weeks.
yes.
Weeks, yeah, 17 months.
You might end up with a scenario where a kid graduates from college and doesn't exactly get a new job, yet, so maybe you can have the kid linger on and help with leaves. Or maybe you can find someone who's in between jobs and, just a number we started with to help with basically what adds up to be the growing season.
Mm-hmm.
Reality, we probably won't use the whole 17 weeks.
But you have that flexibility where you'd probably have to re-advertise it, or that same, and I say this as a kid that did this through high school and college, where as an employee of the town, I was able to not only work for the summer, but also come back and plow in the winters as well, do the side, nobody wanted the sidewalk plow, the sidewalk plows weren't as fancy as they are today. Nobody wanted to be in that death trap, so let the college kid do it, yeah.
You could have got fumigated in those old ones.
Yeah,
And operate it with the window open.
exactly, right? So it gives you that flexibility, that's why I thought when you built it in, it's
Exactly, yeah,
17
and
weeks.
that's part of what we were thinking.
So it might not be one person, it could be one person part of the year. and
Conceivably,
somebody else.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
you might be able to plug someone in later
Yeah, depending
in
on
a
what you
situation
need.
where it was heavy snow or a lot of funerals, or if someone were that flexible. Or you could get someone for the leaf season if they were unemployed or taking a semester off, so to speak. Those things tend to present themselves, those
Yeah, sure.
situations, and sometimes you find a good person to plug in there on a temporary basis.
Makes sense.
That makes sense.
So I guess outside of, vehicles obviously coming up, rotating, that you need new ones, any big projects in the next few years? Obviously, you're trying to cut into that property.
Right, we want to expand by an acre
Yeah.
and be able to add grave
That's
spaces.
immediate, that's part of a phased approach you're trying to do, correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, okay.
Vehicles and mowers wise, we're
good.
sitting pretty good right now.
I'd like to hear that.
We do need to have a bit more comprehensive maintenance plan to prevent any major, code red emergencies as you're going along.
I don't have anything else, anybody?
No?
Right, it was easy.
The lifts,
Taking
the
care of
lifts,
our assets, appreciate
the AstroTurf or whatever, all that kind of stuff is in good shape and it looks nice and.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no,
Well-
that needs to be. Is that part
Yeah,
of general
we got a
maintenance?
relatively new pair of, new set of the greens that go around, so One's got a little tear in it, but I think we can hot glue it.
But the lift and everything?
Yep, we got two lowering devices. One of them's in need of a repair, but it's not in need of replacement right now.
Okay, good.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you all.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks again.
Keeping us ahead of schedule, you guys are great. So we are, it does look like Park and Rec is here.
Some of the other ones down the bottom there, Mr. Chair.
Is there anything else Andrew can do?
Can you jump in with one of these?
Right?
Conservation's here, okay?
Come on in, come on up.
Come on up.
We're gonna skip
Speaking of
ahead.
Andrew,
I know.
I know.
I'm like. Can't be done with it.
Keep things moving.
It's Andrew's evening.
Page 78.
This wasn't planned by any means.
what's your total asking?
You should actually
All in, how many dollars are you asking
All
for?
the money.
You should thank Cheryl for doing it this way, actually.
I had no idea.
You could have put it last. All right.
Good evening, thank you.
Put a 78, by the way.
For this year, for the budget, we have kind of two categories. One is the main regular expense budget, which asking for an increase of $700, mostly having to do with travel expenses. I must admit, I typically don't charge most of my mileage, especially by the end of the year when the budget is gone, and I just kind of keep forgetting to up the budget. So, but a lot of it on my way home and to and from home too. So it's just, so when Cheryl and I were talking, we realized that there's some things that need to be straightened out. So that's the majority of the straight expenses piece of it.
Stop saying that on camera.
Okay. Nobody asked me to do it. Then on the other side is one of the main goal that the Conservation Commission had was try to professionally staff up the commission. I'm part-time at 25 hours. Actually, the person before me, who actually wasn't here for too long, had gone up to full-time. But then when the commission had the position available, I was thinking I'd be able to do it part-time, but came to realize that I can do the bare minimum part-time, but not provide all the services the town really should have. We basically do two things. One side is on the wetland regulation side, which is obviously prescribed by what's required in timeframes and all that. And I'd say 90% of my time is taken up on the regulatory side. And the other side is the open space side, which gets very short shrift in terms of, and I will say the Littleton Conservation Trust does, an amazing amount of work as volunteers, but there's only so far that they can go. So open space management, working on getting, a trail map, which Conservation Trust does have one, but there's really not one that's in a great format that I can hand out, which is a little embarrassing when someone says, do you have a trail map? I was like, well, no. Working on grants for open space purchases, any kind of educational outreach, whether it be training for us or going into the schools or the garden club or just the community outreach in general. All of that just falls by the wayside. Every 6 months or so, I'm able to pull myself into a special project. The main one most recently, well actually the last two have been getting the conservation restrictions in town figured out. We have about 10 of them. One of them took almost 2 years to track down actually physically what piece of property it was on because it was old, it was not well recorded, but I finally found it, and I'm doing the monitoring yearly now. And there's a couple situations where people are encroaching, sometimes by a fair bit, onto areas where the town has conservation restrictions. And the other project I was able to pull on, which was a fun project, was one you may have heard, the vernal pool, the mitigation, the salamander crossing of the roads last spring, which now that it's kind of going on, just continue, but it's got its own momentum going on there. So what we were thinking was a part-time professional staff to provide, obviously, the professional help coverage in the office, especially when I'm away. We could extend the office hours, and we'd be able to split things up that we can get more done on the kind of open side open space, non-regulatory side of things. The Personnel Board has rated it at step 3, grade 8, I think, at 2807 an hour, which I think is actually too much. But that would be something that would be growing. And we also agreed that 19 hours, so under the benefit amount would be fine at this point. So the ask in the report is 31,860, give or take. What I had.
Any questions?
I'm a little bit confused reading the narrative.
I was going to say the narrative, after the Personnel Board rated the position, the table got updated, the narrative didn't.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
one of the, talk about mission staffing.
Oh, yeah.
And you said the assistant agent, the cost for the assistant agent may somewhat be offset by reduced hours for your position.
Yes.
Reducing from where?
Reducing my 25 hours a week to, maybe 22 hours a week or something like that. So that way between...
Does that make sense?
Well, there'll be another professional staff on board who can pick up the slack, who can do the site inspections or be there when the public comes in or do the permits or...
Wouldn't it be better served if you went full-time?
I can't go full-time.
Ah.
So there's that.
Ah. So we got 2 people, 2 insurances.
Well, it's not
benefit.
benefit. That's the key here, I think. Not benefit eligible.
Wait till 13, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's a huge piece of this, actually. But no, good catch on the hours. Though, but.
Yeah, because that hadn't even occurred to me until I went in front of the Personnel Board. So that's obviously something we could do.
Yeah.
It's almost like a job sharing to a degree.
To a degree, yeah.
And it has the coverage. It's hard when a one person.
Yeah, and if I'm sick or on vacation, then permits can't be received, meetings can't really be covered, so.
I will say, having served on the CONSCOM, there's the constant struggle between meeting the statutory requirements imposed by the Wetlands Protection Act, right? There are certain timelines, we don't hit them, the applicant has, presumptive approvals, or we get in hot water in that case. But that's really only half of the mission of the department and the Conservation Commission. So without that additional staff support, it's just keeping your head above water to review the applications and not get stuck in a legally bad spot. Say nothing of meeting the other expectations of what the community has of what conservation is doing as a whole.
Yeah, so I guess I would, so you want to cut back your hours and bring in this other support?
I am thinking, especially depending on how things work, that I could cut back my hours.
So is that a budget decision, or is that more of a...
It's a budget decision.
It's purely a budget decision?
Yeah. I personally wouldn't be opposed to it either, but
right.
It's a budget thing.
Okay.
And it also, frankly, it makes more sense to pay someone who's being paid less than I am to, do all the mailing for a permit than to pay me to do it. So,
right.
There's that switch off too.
Okay.
Good choice.
Amy, one of the things that we kicked around was a week ago was the idea of, could this position, the Assistant Conservation Coordinator, overlap with some support for planning? Because planning was looking for a full-time person from...
Yeah, which I didn't realize until...
From a,
recently, yeah.
From a 30,000 foot view, they seem like there's enough overlap where one person might be able to address some needs in both departments. What's your opinion on the ability to do some of both
There may be
jobs?
some administrative piece of it. Concom has no administrative support, no, nothing. It's just me at the 25 hours. So if someone else comes in, and if there's a slow period, they can certainly, as we do upstairs in our offices, share around, help with filing. But because this is a professional person, not an admin, I really don't, it's gonna be hard. If you find someone who could do it, it's gonna be one person, and it's gonna be hard to find someone else who will do that. Corey Godfrey and I had talked about, he's at the water department and the Clean Lakes, and we had talked about maybe sharing someone there, because he needs somebody. But it got a little, what if they don't like him, or we don't like the person, or, because it's a closer link with the water department than I think it would be with planning.
Okay.
Something like that, almost a watershed ranger type, or something, but.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
I'll,
See you in 5 minutes.
Who's on next?
Oh, and we fully support the Open Space Committee becoming more active.
Okay.
That's a plug.
Thanks for
Go
being
home.
every night.
Good night.
All right. Well,
Does Chase not like this?
I think we can move on.
I'm just sitting where I was. It's not personal.
I know Shelley is sitting upstairs waiting to come down. If you have a blank spot,
I can just keep moving Cheryl into hers as well if we have to
Yeah.
fill. That's,
thank you.
I know Park and Rec.
Yeah, it's gonna leave it alone. Just let it happen naturally.
Yeah. What's a quick one for us that you can probably do?
Veterans.
5 minutes. Probably veterans. Is that?
Didn't I do
Or-
veterans? Oh, yeah, I could do veterans, that's super quick and easy, and I don't have a presentation for that, so. Veterans.
Veterans? Okay.
Yep.
Let's do that right
So-
now. Page 139.
Yes.
So for those of you watching, if there's a department head that requested not to be here, or there was a conflict, they met with Cheryl and had Cheryl briefing for them, our finance director. All right.
So, the veterans budget, overall is going up 2.6% or $500. You'll see some kind of variances between, lines, and that's more so just, shifting, again, expenses into the right categories. So where money might be decreasing from the other services, it's now going into the travel line, which is really where it should be. There's some small, incremental increases in office supplies. There wasn't an office supplies budget. Occasionally he does need some office supplies there. And then a couple of the meetings and conferences that he goes to, he knew that the price was going up this year. So that's a $250 increase. And then his salary is just based off the grid. And that's a $157 increase. So.
Why the huge jump in travel?
That was you aligning it correctly. Is that
Right, yeah, so his travel, he goes to, there's a fair number of meetings that he goes to, and it's just mileage. And so, I think a lot of them are required of him, and then some of them, aren't. And, so it's not that it's something even he has to pay for the meeting itself. It's usually just him driving to the conferences. And so now we're trying to make sure all, mileage, hotels, meals are now in a travel budget line.
Okay.
Any questions on the veterans budget? Changes? All right, thank you, Cheryl. I think we can continue on. What's another, we're gonna getting ahead of it tonight.
Sure. So I had a slide for Clean Lakes, so if you want me to throw that PowerPoint presentation up.
Oh, sure.
Clean Lakes is on page 124. Board members.
dirty slide.
We can have Mark jump in if you want. If you,
It's up to you guys.
yeah, you know, you're here. Let's have you jump right up. Yeah.
Make him leave.
That's what I was hoping would happen. I was up there, but I'm gonna act surprised. Oh, wow, thanks.
So Mark, LCTV is on page 179. Someone with a drier sense of humor than me.
Say your whole budget is contingent upon whether these HD cameras are real or not.
That's true.
I don't know if I like that decision.
That's true. Yeah, we started, tomorrow we start upgrading the cameras. We're gonna move our control room to this back room here. And the cameras will be switched out from the standard definition to high definition, so.
Is that good for us?
For that.
I don't, yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's whole budget's contingent.
Go down in grade, less than standard definition.
Yeah.
Or fuzzy static.
Squiggly lines.
I know we didn't vote for it.
You'll do fine.
Who wins?
So I just, wanted to know if you had any questions. The biggest change, I guess, for us this year is finally getting that separated bucket enterprise fund set and squared away so that all revenues and funding from both Boxborough and the two cable companies that we get our funding from goes into the one bucket. And then we will draw the money from out of that. It'll be voted at town meeting, but that's where the money will come from. And rather than transferring it into the general fund, we just take it from there, and that way if there are any monies that are not spent, it goes back into our bucket. So that's kind of the biggest change. There is one minor adjustment which will need to be made, and that's that we have our video production coordinator is a .5 now instead of .475. So she's now part-time, 20 hours with benefits.
And that's a request, or has that already happened?
That already happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you.
I do we can.
What about the insurance, what happened there? Is that another fix of where it's supposed to be to where it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funded out of LCTV.
And where was it before? It was out of the general funds?
Yeah, so well.
Not all of it.
No, not all.
No, it all came out in one lump at the end of the year for all the insurances and that sort of stuff. Came out of our fund.
Okay, so now we're line item, just putting it in.
Now, with Cheryl being here, you'll notice, we notice, you probably don't, but there are many more line items now, so we're putting things where they belong, and that way we can track it. She can track it throughout the town, so.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure.
That's why you see lots of zeros, and then you find the new budget at the other end.
So
Sorry, Mark.
No problem.
So the technology upgrade, is it cost-wise, is it a large expense that you're having to do this?
Yeah, we did plan for it.
Yeah.
This happened a couple of town meetings ago where we set the money aside. We were kind of waiting to see what would happen with whether the move might happen, like the Space Needs Committee and all that stuff started happening around the same time. So rather than go ahead and spend it, we waited, but now we see that we'd be waiting probably for a long time for that. So we just go ahead and did it. The only other capital item, which won't be on this fall, spring town meeting, possibly for the fall, would be equipment for the library media room. They're building a conference room that will probably outfit with robotic cameras similar to what's here, so that if they have meetings or other events that we can cover those from there as well. That's generally around the $20,000 range.
That's what this is?
Yes, this is,
Same number?
we're using some existing equipment, so, but technology has changed and prices have come down on some things, and so to start from scratch, the way we would do it now is less than what we did 5, 6 years ago, which is kind of amazing. You'd think that usually prices go up, but things have consolidated. We've learned that we don't really need this, we don't really need that, and so we've just kind of gotten smarter at building these things.
Joking aside,
Yeah.
what is the upside to us doing this upgrade and doing it now?
Doing it now?
Well, so what is the upgrade? I mean, if we go from standard to high def, I mean, I can, if you're watching a sporting event or, you know, something on television, I certainly get it, but I don't necessarily see the value in.
Sure. Well, I know, I'm not making this up, okay? I know we're not NBC or ABC, but we strive to be as good as we can and to give the best product that we can. And in order to do that, we thought that upgrading these cameras, which one of them was kind of failing anyway, we figured at some point they would need to be replaced. So they get a lot of use. But in upgrading, we figured, well, let's move from standard definition to high definition. It's a different aspect ratio as well on your screen. Right now, you notice the meetings are boxed. They'll be stretched out. But, you know, just a better product for the consumer. And that was, and the timing, there really wasn't anything to the timing except that one of these cameras was starting to go, so said, let's
This
do it.
installation is the original. These cameras have been up here for a long time, so
Yeah, I
any day they could go.
I get that. I'm just taking into consideration this building and whether or not we're gonna be doing any, you know, what space needs, what's gonna happen to this space, and is that space gonna be valuable to us? Just trying to take it, the whole picture into perspective.
Yeah, the good thing about having the control room back here is that they're shorter runs for the cables as well. So if this room were to go away, to pull everything out would be a lot easier to dismantle and move to another location if need be than the way it's configured now where the people are sitting up in our control room.
Except for installation, everything new that we're talking about here could be moved to a new facility, so.
Right.
Just playing devil's advocate.
That's all right.
Any other questions, Mr. Mark? Good. Thanks, Mark.
Okay,
Coming
thank
out.
you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mark.
you're welcome.
Excellent job, Mark.
Thanks.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
It's funny that you just happen to be passing by, too.
Yeah, I know. One of the
All right, I guess we can catch up now, get back onto Park and Rec. Yeah, come on up. We were ready for you, by the way, at Board of Supervisors.
We were trying to get set up for the adult cornhole league down
Okay.
the tavern, so we rushed
Yeah, I
back.
know what setting up for a
Being
cornhole
late.
league at the tavern involves.
Setting up cornhole boards at this, yeah, venture.
It's been an upside down day for Park and Rec. So.
Yes, yeah.
So page 182 again for Park and Rec. Thank you.
So I'm gonna try and keep this short and sweet, unlike my previous presentations in the past. I'm not gonna go over too much about major points from this current year. I think just the big pieces that I want to remind folks that if I hadn't mentioned before, to give an update on that. So over the last year, the staff has been working very diligently to incorporate any indirect costs into their programs. So we've increased the participation fees to reflect those in the updated budgets as we go along. So we've been trying to strive to cover all the costs, but it just gets difficult to include every single indirect cost that's there. So like I said, that's been something that has been a goal over this past year to really, step that up over the time. The other piece is that incrementally, we're going to be increasing the summer seasonal wages. So with the goal that we want to eventually get to the $15 minimum wage, we've been way ahead of the curve with that. So that's something that I'll be working with Steve Venuti, hopefully, before he retires, to come up with the plans moving forward, since he's so good at that. So just to know that that's coming as well. And then last, because of the pressure for the amount of space and, you know, kind of the space that we have at the school has been shrinking over time, we've been using the vans a lot more. So at this point, we currently have 3 vans in the fleet. The oldest will probably have to be replaced in fiscal year 2022. So that's just something I want to give a heads up to that coming in the future. So those are major points for this last year. So nitty gritty of things. So what are we asking for? This is pretty clear cut and dry. So our overall budget for our department for fiscal year 21 is around $1.1 million. So outside the capital requests, our department's asking for a total general fund transfer of, it's like $328,000 and some change. So this is only about $98,000 increase from last year's general transfer. So what does that include? That's going to include the continuing funding and salary and benefits for myself and for Tim, our assistant director. This year, we've added in the request for the 30% of wages and benefits for the community education program coordinator, as well as the administrative assistant. The reason that we're asking for that, and we've asked for it in the past as well, is that we did a cost analysis back in September of 2016. And when we did that, the results came back that we were operating at about 70% sustainability, and we've kind of hovered around that same spot since then. So again, our goal is to eventually get out of that and to become 100% sustainable. That's where we want to get towards. But we need that help from the town to be able to get to that goal. The sooner the better, in our opinion. So that's something that we really want to strive towards getting to. So that's one way. With those 2 positions, especially with administrative assistant, there's not funds that come in to support that role. So that's something that gets taken out of the programs, and that's, again, one of those indirect costs that kind of has to get spread across the board equally. So if we have that support in that position, that's something that will just make it that much easier for us to be able to, collect that reserve to help us in those times maybe when things aren't, going as well as other years. So that's something to keep in mind. The other new thing that we would be asking for is $15,000 to pay for utility costs for the parks. So originally, this was always part of we would ask for like $50,000 through capital fund for equipment and renovation type of repair things. So with that, the conversations that we've had with Cheryl have been that, we want to use capital in the proper way. So this is one of the things that utility is not a proper place for, the utilities to be. So we're going to take that out and ask if that could be part of a general transfer. So when we did the calculations, and this is things that include like the electricity, the water, the porta potty rentals, the tight tank pumping, trash removals, and all supplies that are related to it, it ends up being around $15,000. So that's the number of the requests. And honestly, that's it. Those are the big things. So just to reiterate that in simple terms, for fiscal year 21, it's continued support for salary and benefits and the parks utilities. So it's approximately $98,000 over what was given to Parks and Rec last year. Do you guys want to cover capital tonight at all? I'm not sure if that's something you do want to go there. Okay. Any questions about that, I guess, first before we go on to capital?
Alan.
Yes, Alan.
Does this budget assume that you're still paying the health insurance and pension for Sharon Martell?
So We are, yes.
To get out from under that.
Right, so that does not include that, so that's something that we still would be paying.
So
That's
this
an
budget
indirect
doesn't
cost.
assume that you've been relieved of that problem.
No, we've incorporated it into it because we know that that's something that will be ongoing. Yeah.
Any other questions on operational kits? And a lot of moving numbers, I know a lot of this has to
Yeah.
do, Cheryl, probably with the new, just aligning numbers a little bit differently? on
A little
lines?
bit, yeah, it's doable, yep.
Okay.
With and then you have the $30,000 in the other staff that you
Correct.
making that shift, right?
I just had a question on
30%.
some of your program receipts.
Yeah.
Like
I was
Camp to
like,
Had
30.
one.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a variance there, and it looked like it shift 50,000. Is that? And it looked like it's fairly common that it can go
It can.
like this. So
Yep.
it's not. Do you have a capacity number that you say we cannot take anymore, or are you?
We do.
Okay.
In the past, probably about I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it was up to about 120. And over the past 2 or 3 years, we've increased it to 180.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that seems to be enough to cover.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't met those goals yet of trying to get to 120, but I think the biggest weeks that we had were around 160.
Yeah, I think that was our biggest weeks. The other thing to take into consideration that we're at the mercy of is the end of the school year. So this is a great, for instance, this year. So since we're already up against the snow days we've already lost our first week. So that's $30,000-$40,000 worth of revenue this year that we're going to miss out on. That coupled with the fact that, depending on when the school dictates the end of our camp season is, whether that's the first week of August, the second week of August, you can look at $30,000 to $50,000 per week. That's really out of our control based off of where that gets slid to. So what you're probably seeing is last year was one of the first years in a while that we did lose that first week of that last week of June because of the way that we had shifted, which is where you see the variance in the pay or in the receipts. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I guess we do capital. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So capital budget, so requests, and these were all vetted through the Park Commission. We have some commissioners here tonight if any would like to speak on it. So these were done in a priority system of what they would like to see if we end up in, the area of being in that chopping block for capital. So first would be that major equipment that I mentioned before. So with this, instead of asking for the 50,000, we dropped it down to 40. And the reason that we didn't drop it down to 35 is because we have some other things that needed to happen that are going to happen this year. So, for example, we've got there's a swing set out at Fay Park that needs to get ripped out. Whether we replace that or not, that depends on a later request down the chain in the Capitol. But so we need to remove that swing set, and then we also need to do playground inspections for the beach as well as the playground that is at Fay Park. So all of those costs, money, so we want to make sure that we have enough funds to be able to cover that, and as well as the other items that we typically cover in the major equipment. So the main purpose of that is just the ongoing maintenance for the parks, the facilities, and the park lands. It helps us keep the lake, playgrounds, facilities, everything up to date and safe operating conditions that the town residents, expect. So that's, what that capital request is, and that's always the number one on the list usually.
One of the major things that we're going to be incurring in that playground maintenance this year that we haven't as of yet is the basketball hoops at 300 King have not been inspected since they were installed.
Yep.
So it's far time for us to do it, so that's going to be something that we're going to be working with the guys who do the hoops at all the schools are going to be coming in and doing that this year. So we have not incurred that cost in the past just because it hasn't been time to do it.
And we may or may not be on the hook for resurfacing the basketball courts too at this point, out at 300.
You've been there. Seems like a brand new.
I know, right? It's been there for 6 years. 6 years. Nothing touched to them, so they've been doing really awesome. So that'll be part of the inspection. If that's something that's put on the request that we need to do that, then we have to, walk down that path. Chuck, you had a
So,
question?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the inspection, Tim, you just kind of alluded to it, I think. You guys do that in collaboration with the schools? When the schools, they have their inspector come in for the playground equipment?
This is the
as well
first
as-
time we're going to have that collaboration. We haven't inspected them in the past. When we did our generic playground inspection for Castle in the Trees, that was one thing that was put on the report, was it was time for us to have a full inspection of the hoops.
So-
Yeah, yeah.
All right, but that is, so moving
Yeah,
forward,
we'll
as far
work
as
with
any
the same
playgrounds,
company, yeah,
just, I mean, I don't know if there's any cost savings by doing it together so that they're coming out one less time.
right. Hopefully, we'll
They have,
see.
they have to get their equipment inspected as well, so we may as well try to.
Yeah, we'll coordinate.
That's the plan.
Yep. All right, so second on the list is Fay Park renovation. So this is something that kind of came to our attention a few years back when we were doing the open space and recreation needs. The individual that was doing the report came out and was trying to check and see, you know, were we AAB, ADA compliant at a lot of our facilities. So the answer that we got was no. We did a big effort this past summer with trying to get the beach more compliant. We're not 100% there, but we're getting there. So we had the water wheelchairs and we did the access mats and things like that, which have been amazing to have. So we wanted to look at Fay Park and see what we need to do, especially since the grading is not exactly what it needs to be compliant. So part of that would be, I mentioned before, the replacing the swing set that was out there. Currently, if you go out there, swing sets have been there forever. And they are like a whole bunch of toddler seats. And then there's like 2 or 3 like regular swing seats. So we would want to have something that would incorporate, you know, a lot of people being able to use it. So different types of swings, whether it's like child and parent or, you know, they have, there's a whole gamut. So we would look at what we could put in there. We'd also be looking at trying to create AAB and ADA compliant walkways to each of these park facilities. This was the first part on there, I'll come back to it. We want to create a parking lot out there. When we had the fire station come on, the parking lot that we kind of shared, that space has changed a lot. And it's not necessarily, I would say, safe for individuals to kind of park in that area because that's where the fire trucks exit and enter now at that spot. So there are definitely locations. We've gone out and we've done some sketches and there's things that we could do if we put parking like on the back of the facility. So there's tons of things that we can do. So that would be something that we would want to include. And then we're also looking at the possibility of putting in a pavilion out there. So this request would be looking at creating a cement pad that would be a home for that pavilion in the future. And the ultimate goal of that would be, you know, we have a lot of special events and things that are out there, but ideally the ice skating rink that we have, we're hoping in the wintertime that could be a facility to house that. And then have that environment that we've been looking to have, you know, out at Fay Park when we've tried to like dam up the water and try to get the ice skating there. So this would be a better way to be able to actually, you know, make sure that it goes. It's got a roof, which keeps, you know, the snow off of it. It's a lot less maintenance to, because this has been a lot of work so far trying to get the ice prepped. So that's the Fay Park renovation.
So with Fay Park too, it's important to keep in mind, you know, something like this one would just be beneficial for recreation. You know, the Colonial Fair is run out of there. We have multiple things that are run by the churches in the area, based out of there. The high school uses it as their track and field kind of home spot. So there's multiple resources that would benefit from Fay Park, you know, which by default kind of becomes our fairground here in Littleton that would benefit from a project like this, not just the recreation department as a whole.
The third one is creation of a dog park, and that would be $175,000. So this is something that's like come across our plates quite a few times. So this is the first year that the Park Commission has decided to put this on the list. So, you know, a couple of bonuses about this one is there's a lot of grants out there, and there's a lot of grants with a lot of funding. However, usually they are requesting the town to commit funds ahead of time and pay for the essentially the creation of this dog park upon completion. So that's something that, again, no guarantees that you can get grants, but I think, we've got a pretty fair chance at doing it. We actually, 2 years ago, got a grant for $25,000 to do one, but we just, at that time, didn't have, that wasn't enough to do the entire thing. So we had to kind of, say, no, but thank you. So, it's one of those pieces that we can include that. It's a service that doesn't currently exist here in Littleton. The closest parks that we have that are dog parks are Billerica, Nashua, and Leominster. Oh, there is one in Chelmsford? Okay. So, it's something that we could add to the community by that.
And where's that location?
We have a couple of different places where we could put it. So there's a few spaces that are under the care and custody of Parks and Recreation that would be amenable to it. Yep.
How big a space?
It depends. So again, it comes down to the location that we'd want to be able to have it. In general, you need to create 2 separate spaces, one for larger dogs and one for smaller dogs. So fencing is really, you're laughing, it's true, it's so true.
You're in a city like DC, I know when I go, these little dog parks, they literally have to do that.
You literally have to do it. So there's gates in between, so you have like that, you're locked in with the dog and then you release them into the wild.
Last year, according to the National Park and Rec survey, the average dog park is 1.2 acres.
Yeah.
Not including parking. So your actual playable area.
So we have a couple different locations where that would be a possibility. What's that?
Yes, that's one of the areas we were.
Yeah, absolutely. That weird triangle that we have, over by Russell Street, that's a possibility. So, yeah.
That could be something that, really, if you start grassroots and just get the fence up, and then build from there. It's not something that has to just be 100% completed. It's the fence is the real kind of, once you have a fence, you have a dog park.
And you can
go from there.
Yep.
No government regulations on how you have to build a dog park, you can pretty much do it the way you want.
Not yet,
Not
kind
yet
of.
anyway, huh?
Yeah, not yet. Anyway.
Not yet
Until something gets big.
No ADA compliance there or anything.
That's coming though.
Yeah,
no doubt.
It's possible. The extension of 300 King, that's number 4. That's something, I talked about that last year, so I won't get into that to too much depth other than it would be a 9,000 square foot addition onto the parking lot that's already currently there. And we would work with the highway department and try to prep the site so that if sewer were to come through there, that it would be already set up and ready to go. So
9,000 square feet would grow it by 50%?
It's like a little bit, not quite. So the concept that we went through last year was that we would have an open space available for bathhouses if we needed to in the future, because there is legislation going through well, I shouldn't say going through. It's on the floor about there needing to be bathrooms at parks as well as giving access to water. So that's something that could possibly come down the pipeline. So if we're already ready and prepared for something like that, we would have the spot. Otherwise, we could use that parking for the meantime. But it's about, I think it's an additional, it was like 25 to like 30 spots. Okay. So maybe not quite 50%, but if you've been out there, the overflow is just insane.
Oh, yeah.
So people are parking on the street or they're parking in the grass, and we just want it to be, a safe environment. It shouldn't be a crazy one. So
where would that parking go?
What's that?
Which direction are you going to make it bigger?
Yeah, so if you, so the parking lot itself, if you're on Great Road and you're looking towards the park, over towards the Masons, there's some space that's there. So that could possibly be used to expand it over towards the Mason side. Yep. And then the last, and this is always the last one that we put on there, and we know that's probably, we're kicking the can down the road, but we always want to have it on there, is creation of a new field. So again, we did our field study a while back, and that was something that we do as a town, overuse our fields. Chris Stoddard has done an amazing job with all the highway staff to really fix these fields and get them back to a great place. But that's still going to continue to be an issue that, we need to make sure that we are thinking about that, planning for that, that eventually down the line that we do need to get there. So that's on there.
The other piece of that is being forethinking rather than being reactive. Is it might be a realistic possibility that could be something that's needed sooner than later, depending on how the sewer project goes and what the need is for fields, while the potential of some fields being taken offline for a considerable amount of time while it's going on. So that could be something that, if, depending on the amount of area, the amount of fields you're taking offline, whether it can be halved or whatnot, that is a significant need that everybody from high school sports teams all the way down to our youth sports would have a need for sooner than later if that goes a certain way.
And the other thing to keep in mind, when we look at the field space that we currently have, the schools own pretty much all of them. The only ones that aren't are the Kerper Field, which is owned by Light and Water. And we have a lease agreement with St. Anne's to use the property in the back of the church. So there's none that are actually owned by the town or by Parks and Recreation. So, if the schools decide that they need to grow the building, which realistically that might come down the pipeline sooner than we think, fields are the first place that, they're going to look at to build or expand, their building into. So again, that's something where, we have to be cognizant of being able to still maintain the space that we currently use and not shrink that. So by thinking about new field creation, we are being proactive rather than reactionary. So that's why we always kind of throw them on there, because it's an important piece. All right, so that's all I've got for you for capital. Any questions on capital requests?
Any more? Good. Thank you. Good.
All right. Again, super proud of my staff. They're amazing folks. We love them. They care so deeply about this community and work so hard to create amazing programs, innovative programs, and provide wonderful services that enrich our community. I kind of always end the budget hearing just kind of giving the explanation that, recreation departments the importance of them are so understated. Healthy recreation departments are directly correlated to positive economic development and growth in a community. That's been statistically researched. There's also additional research that show that positive benefits and increase of quality of life of those that incorporate recreation into their lives, physically, emotionally, mentally, and socially. The more positive opportunities that we allow for our community members, young and old, to interact and foster a sense of place. When we feel like we belong, we're happy, we give back and encourage others to give back as well. It's a positive upcycle that creates a community where people are proud to live their lives, and recreation is on the front line of creating those experiences for our community. So I thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us. And we're both available if you got further questions later on down the line. We're glad to talk to y'all. Yeah, there's that southern accent again. It's been coming out in spades today. I don't know what's going on.
Well, thank you for the briefing. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great night.
Well, we're back now, yeah?
All right. Where are we at? Diane, I think. I believe so.
Right.
Yeah.
We're ahead a little bit here.
Keep things cruising, Michelle.
Some musical chairs earlier, so that's
okay.
Yeah, we.
Knock people around.
74.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Don't say thank you yet.
74.
When are you up?
I'm not touching that one.
It's gonna be a mail out.
Why did my papers get?
So I'm here this evening to talk about both the town clerk's budget as well as the elections budget. First of all, for the town clerk's budget, we are looking to add 5 hours to Sandy's budget, Sandy's time, based on what we're looking at. In all reality, I would like to have added 10 hours to her hourly schedule based on the needs of the clerks office. We really have a lot of people that are coming in a lot more, looking for a lot of things from our office, you know, each and every day. It's not just, you know, between the dog's licenses, marriage licenses, everything, everyday life. People coming through looking for birth certificates, marriage certificates, death certificates. It happens each and every day. It increases all the time. And in all reality, if I need a day off, our office isn't covered for the entire day. If I decide to take a vacation, our office isn't covered for the entire week. So increasing her hours to 35 hours a week, still we're short 5 hours a week. So it kind of puts a Band-Aid on for the week. But in all reality, we could, you know, put her in for 40 hours for that week and kind of shift around some time, and hopefully in the end, you know, we are not short with her salary, but we can do whatever is you know, humanly possible to be sure that, you know, her salary is covered. But we are only looking right now to do the 35 hours, just to kind of help us out a little bit. She is has been a godsend. And getting an assistant town clerk has really been wonderful for this town. Years back, when we got rid of an assistant town clerk, it could have been, it was really the worst thing we could have ever done for this town. It was a detriment, and to have gone back to this is really, the residents they've been, you know, in looking at it, you've got to admit that the residents have been the ones that have gotten the better end of this. You know, she's been wonderful. She's learned a lot. She's added to our office. So to give her another 5 hours, I think, is one of the best things that we can do here. As far as the elections, if you look at it, we're adding $4,500 in, and what that is just a shift from one of the other departments. We're taking back some of the things. The E-code is what that $4,500 is. So if you look at that, that's why that's a big jump. And this year we have president's election in November. We have the state primary in September. And one of the big things we have is the early voting. So that's a huge thing. We don't get a lot of money back from the state. So in September, actually it's August, we have 5 days of early voting, and in November we have 10 days of early voting. The state expects us to front that money, and they expect you to give a lot of time. So we have to do a lot of extra time, not just our office hours, but extra time. So we're looking at 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, all of that time that we have to do. My time is free time based on the state, but everybody that we have to get in, it's all volunteer. So, you know, it's really difficult to get all that, but Sandy's time is given back by the state, but not my time and not all the volunteers. So we're trying to cover all that time that we. So the senior time is stuff that we give back to the seniors in work study, you know, so that's covered a little bit, but we have to make sure that we're covering all of that, so that's part of it as well. So that's where you're seeing the differences in the extra time here, so.
How many days is that?
So November, we have to do 10 days of early voting, yep.
That's 5 days.
Yeah, and then in August, it's 5 days. And then on top of it, after we do the early voting, we have to go upstairs and we have to put in each and every day's voting into the state system. So it has to be done before the next day of early voting. So, yeah, so it's not real easy, but.
Is that state mandated?
That is state mandated, yes, yeah.
Unfunded mandate.
Yeah.
Cheryl, how does the money coming back from the state work? Is that we just budget all of it here, and then some of it comes back through the cherry sheets or something back into the general fund, basically? But all of it gets budgeted here anyway, right?
Yes, no matter what. I mean, and they only give us a very small percentage of what we actually do, and they don't actually give us back what we do at night. It's just the time that we do during the extra time. And they don't actually, so they look at anybody whose salary, that money doesn't even get counted, and then you have to include just people that are being paid. Volunteers don't get paid, obviously, because they don't consider it, even if you tell them, like, a lot of the, so if we explain that we have people that are doing senior hours, that we pay them,
Tax work off.
It doesn't count, so.
Yep.
It's kind of freebie time as far as they're concerned.
Can we get cute with cross-trained employees and non-exempt employees?
So we can try and work that way, but so we're working 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday. And then we have to do one Saturday during the state election. And so it's tough to try and get people to work as it is, because a lot of people are working in their own jobs. And so it's mostly seniors that we're getting to do all of that. And so it's, yeah. And I'm not sure, a lot of the big cities actually pay their poll workers. So that's how they get.
Not just cities, a lot of towns do as well.
And some of the towns do as well, yeah. And we're having more and more difficult time getting people to cover it for us. So I think in the future, we're going to be seeing that we're going to have to do that as well, because it's more and more difficult trying to get people to do it, so. But, yeah, so those are the biggest changes in the budget, is the $4,500, which we're taking back to do our E-code, and that's from our town meetings. So that's what it's costing us to have our E-code upgraded on our website for all of our changes that we do when we have our information done by general code. So they upload all of our stuff for us, so I send it out to them.
That's a cost to Civic CMS, the provider that does the
general code, yeah, so they do it for us, yeah, so I send it out to them. Tom used to do it, now we have it, we've gone back to general code.
Yeah, okay.
So those are things. But yeah. Hopefully next year I'll come back for another 5 hours. If approved. So those are the couple of things.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, sure. Questions, go.
We're fortunate enough to have a number of volunteers that do show up and help us with our elections. We're also fortunate enough to have a single polling place so that you can manage that better.
Yes.
What is the, do we have 50 people that volunteer?
So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. We have 12 people for every 4 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so 12, 24, 36. 36, and then at the end of the night, we have probably another 4 to 6 people that come in to help out as well, and that doesn't include the people that actually break down and set up the polling location. And so, yeah, so about probably 50 people per election.
Elections are important.
They are. They are important. And like you said, Chuck, we're lucky to only have one location. If we hit 10,000 people in the town, that's going to push us to a second location. It's mandated that we go to a second location.
Sorry, go back, can I rewind that?
I'm sorry, 10,000. So, yeah, if we hit 10,000, then we would be mandated.
I thought we just have to add a precinct.
Really?
A precinct, yeah, because we wouldn't have enough, we can't have
there?
4, and we can't, full precinct, we wouldn't be able to have 4 precincts in one location.
Why not?
There's not, because the spacing, we don't have enough spacing. There's not enough room.
We don't need to get into that.
No, we don't
could
need
not.
to nitty-gritty. I'd like to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the town of Stoneham has 7 precincts and they do it in one polling place, and it's no big on our gymnasium.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
there
were,
might be an
we
appeal
were
process or
told when
something.
they came out and looked at our location and said that it's not feasible the way that we have it set up, that we can't keep it there.
Jerks. Give me a name, Diane. Put my scally cap on, no.
Don't take out the snacks line.
Yeah. We were told we had to move to another location if we went to a fourth.
Off the federal census, or?
They make it so easy.
I don't know, I just look at some of those things like it's another one of those community things, right? It's all in one place, it's a fun thing to do. You go and you see everyone once they start splitting it up. It's just one more thing that kind of just.
Chuck can't campaign in two places.
That's right,
at
I know,
once.
it's tough, huh?
That might be done.
All right, any other questions?
So two things as far as capital.
Oh, right, sorry. Missed them. Don't want to forget you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we, the election machines, we have had those election machines for 25 years. We've been fortunate enough to have them for 25 years. Unfortunately, they are, they do not have parts to repair them. They are going obsolete, so far we have been able to have them repaired without any issues. We did have one of the machines go down a year ago in the middle of the election, and they were able to come down from New Hampshire with a spare machine. However, we were told that if that happened again, they may not have a spare machine to come down with. So I did get a quote for 3 new machines and a spare, and at that point, this is $20,000 for new machines. In order for us to do that, we would, it's a threefold process in order to do that. We would have to get a vote of the Board of Selectmen. Once the vote goes to the Board of Selectmen, then we would have to get a vote of the town meeting, and then it needs to go to the state for their approval. LHS does have the state contract, and so this machine, the machines that we are looking at, has been approved by the state. So I do know that that's not an issue to get them to approve these particular machines. So that is not an issue with that.
Are they the same kind of machines, the same concept, where you'd be filling in the circles
No,
and running
they're
them through?
totally different. They,
It's gotta be more modernized than
much,
that.
yeah.
But the accuracy of the AccuVote,
Very
you
easy.
say what you will about the
Exactly.
AccuVote, but the accuracy was,
Yeah, the accuracy is
exactly.
great, yeah. The accuracy
and,
that
I mean, for
we,
you reporting, you Z it out and it gives you the printout
yeah,
per precinct.
yeah,
on the
I mean, we
receipt.
get the printout within 30
Immediately,
seconds.
yeah.
It's printed out and done.
So the AccuVote system was
Yeah.
simple, really,
Much simpler, but
but they gotta make
unfortunately,
it less simple.
yeah. It's called ICP, so it's somewhat similar, but a lot more modern.
All right, so
So-
20K for machines, and what was the second one?
And the second one is the matting. At the school, and Cheryl and I talked about this, Bill Maher and I have been talking about the matting that is put down on the flooring at the school. We've been very fortunate in that we have only had one incident at the school with anybody tripping and falling. Unfortunately, the matting that we use takes about 45 minutes to an hour to lay that matting. It then needs to sit and really try and lay flat. But we did have someone who did trip and fall. The woman had to have 4 hours of surgery, broke her shoulder in 3 places and busted her hip in 2 places.
My goodness.
On the way out of voting?
What's that?
On the way out of voting?
She had finished voting, yes.
Just want to make sure she cast her vote.
So Bill Maher and I have been talking about what do we do, because that matting is really, the more we use it, the more we roll it back up and put it away. It is getting more and more wrinkled. It's harder to keep it to lay flat. And so he has gone and he's received a quote for this new tile. It's not really tile, it's more of a cloth. So there's a blue and there's a gray. The town meeting and the town election is really the major 2 things that uses the flooring to protect the floor from getting scraped up and ruined. So the quote for this new matting, which would take about a half an hour to lay down, they're small tiles, it's $21,000. Do we split the cost with the school, or does the town side do the whole thing where we're the ones that are actually using it to protect the flooring? I don't know.
Well, I think the schools would use it potentially in the case where they had to do an indoor graduation, things like that. I can see where the school would use it for sure.
Yeah.
You know, even events like when we do the Christmas bazaar.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
I mean, if it's usable like that, then
I mean, I can see that, but we use it 3 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes this year I'll use it
more because
6 times.
Yeah.
For the town side.
Yeah, no, I think.
I'm just,
I'm just saying, as far as the cost goes,
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Right.
it's town money. So.
Exactly, it's money, I mean, it's, right. So, I mean, I don't know if it's something that should come out of clerk's budget, or if it's something that should be shared by the school, and I don't know. I'm just.
Now, you said this was squares, but it only takes 30 minutes to put up, as
It's
opposed
quicker.
to rolling it out. That it takes
It's quicker because it goes down, it comes off on almost like a
Interlock.
conveyor.
Oh, I got you.
They
Kind of like a
just-
basement floor.
And it's done. Then you can use it right away, you can go in and lay the.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, whereas
How long
the
would you
other one.
expect that to last? I'm sorry.
This, 15 years. Yeah. The other one we've had since the school, but we didn't get it right away. But it's always, we're constantly taping it and trying and shifting it, moving it, and hoping and praying that nobody trips and falls and gets hurt. And the liability.
Someone already
It's a tarp.
Right, yeah. So, do we do this and know that there's not going to be any wrinkles and no issues and no,
When's the first time you've got when's the next election time that you have to use the gymnasium?
March?
March?
Yeah, we couldn't do it by March, so.
No, but one might think that it would be, we had not anticipated this.
Right.
So it might be an item that would come out of our budget.
Yeah.
Transfer.
So you're looking at it as a potentially
Transfer.
something that could, I mean, we're looking at it as an emergency fund situation
Yeah.
where it could potentially damage the floors or.
Well, I mean,
Somebody.
so you look
Be
at
at that
this,
point.
you look at.
You could use the liability, right? If
Right,
we
yeah,
just,
$21,000 versus $1 million lawsuit.
right. No, it's.
I mean, I just-
Absolutely, I just think that someone could trip on the tiles too, I mean.
Yeah, slip and
So I'm
fall.
not, but
Less
you're,
likely to happen, not.
the case is made, though, I mean, what we're doing now is not as efficient, first of all, and it's probably
Right.
not as safe if you really look
Right.
at it. So
Right.
that's the argument to be made.
Right, because it's constantly, I mean, it's a moving target,
Yeah,
the matting that we
Yeah.
have now.
okay.
I just,
A lot of tape.
well, yeah, and it's never guaranteed because it's never sitting right, and we're constantly,
But we haven't heard about this before now, have we? This is the first time it's
No, we've
come
known
up?
about it.
Huh?
We've known about it. Yeah, the schools have complained about it, and
I mean, so to be honest with you, 2 town meetings ago, I fell flat on my face behind the,
projector screen?
no,
That's what
right
I went
behind
down.
where
On the
we
the
sit.
table where we sit.
Where
yeah.
we sit, I fell. So, I mean, the matting was buckled and I tripped.
Right.
Fell on my face, so.
Diane, so I'm a little less familiar. I don't recall seeing it. Did you say it's used at town meeting also, or just the elections?
Yeah, it's
Town meeting
definitely.
as well.
Huh? Okay. I thought it was just the wood floor at town meeting, no?
No.
Oh.
Dang, if I may.
Yeah.
Are these 4x4 squares?
Uh,
Is that an actual thickness?
No, that's nice.
I know. Wilson, Seriously.
So,
Thickness could be accurate, but I don't think Bill Maher's gonna store 7,562 of those in his office.
Pro Shield matting, 39 3/8 by 7/8. I don't know. I can't read this.
I don't know.
I don't know.
One of my thoughts is, right now, we store the rolls.
It would still go in the same location.
Probably like 3 or 4 foot squares, I bet.
They'll be held on long tables like this, long carts like this.
Okay. The only other thought I have, and it's I'm assuming it's the school saying no. If it's gonna cost us 21 grand once to do this, I don't know what it costs to buff the floors. I know that we do it like full-on resurface periodically.
Once a year.
Well, not the full urethane, we do the full buffing, but then we do the urethane. We do that once a year?
Once a year.
Okay.
At the end.
All right, so I don't know, I know there's other communities that do it right on the gym floor, and they buff them out at the end of the day.
Yeah, that was my next question. Where did you find
What does
out
that
about
cost
this?
us?
And did you, what is
Maybe.
what's on their floor? I'm curious, are other towns using this? I mean, is this technology, where'd you find out about this?
So Bill and I have been talking, he looked it up, he's been researching it for almost 2 years now, because he and I have been talking about it so much, and he finally got this through WB Mason.
Yeah, I mean, if you're,
Somebody else had been using it, they just started putting it down on their floor, their gym floor, so.
Yes, I mean, the actual product, we don't necessarily have to decide on right now, but I would say that there should be a little more research than our WMAC guy. You know, there's got to be other communities that are doing something else. I know there's communities that are doing nothing, and they're just having whether it's their janitorial staff, custodial staff, go in and buff out the floors after an election or whatever use. The worst is if it's in March and you've got rock salt and all that kind of stuff and you're tracking it, that's where you do the most damage to the floors, and people coming in. And there's slip risks there as well if your feet are wet and you walk down the gym floor. So I mean, it's you could I can play either side of this argument, but I'd like to try to do a little bit more research where we have all the information. Really, what we're currently doing isn't working.
it's not efficient. First, I mean, that's the safety side. We could sit here and talk about you falling and everything else, but I just think I'd like to know what other products are out. There might be something easier that you roll out that's easier. I don't know.
so what was the time
I'm not
difference,
gonna.
Diane, compared to what the system that you're using now and to lay that down? How long does that take?
So this probably takes about a half an hour to put down.
A half hour.
So and it's ready to use. I mean, the floor is ready to use. We can go right in and set up.
Right.
The other one, we go in, it takes, half hour, 45 minutes to set up, but then it's got to sit. We can't go in till the next day because it's not.
It's got to sit
gotta
overnight.
It's got to sit
yeah.
overnight to.
So it takes a half hour with this,
Right.
without sitting.
I would just like to add, though, that when there's things like this that we're talking about, we know they need to be replaced, they should be on a capital plan, so it's not a surprise. If it's really not.
That's what we put it on.
Yeah, now, but if we've been talking about this for a year or two, just somewhere we should have seen it before now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it out there as general information, because that's, okay. And especially, this isn't, hundreds of thousands, so it's a little bit easier, but it's, if we know in a year or 2 or 3 that we're probably gonna need to replace something, it's just good to get it on the plan, just so we have visibility to it, that's all.
Any other questions? Thank you, Diane, for coming out tonight.
Thanks, Diane.
I didn't plan on it for this year. I was putting it out.
Okay, zoning board.
Thank you for bringing it up.
We got the trifecta coming up. Zoning board, what else is it? Board of Health and building.
3 different pages, too.
Yeah, making us work. What do we want to do first?
Well, see, a week and 1 day onto the job, I'm going to let my esteemed assistant.
Congratulations, by the way.
Congratulations.
So we'll do Board of Health first?
Board of Health.
It's 131.
131.
So, I should get the gold star. This budget decreased.
Hey, you're the first one.
Just soften us up.
For something else.
The next budget.
Yeah, let's lead with Board of Health, that's a decrease.
You taking notes
So basically, the Board of Health budget is we have the shared administrative assistant she has 18 hours allotted to the Board of Health, 18 hours to the building department, and 4 hours to the ZBA. So it's just basically her wages, and then we added the line item in this year for overtime wages for the evening meetings that she needs to attend that go over her total 40 hours. So we just made that adjustment in the wages for this year. And then as far as the expenses, I just, basically just looked at previous years, and there's not a lot of expenses associated with the health department, and a lot of them are the office supplies. We share the supplies for both building, zoning, and Board of Health, so we just sort of rotate those through. But we're always buying filing cabinets, and because of the retention of the records that are needed, so I kept that at 500. The advertising I decreased because the only time they really need advertising is if there's regulation changes. Postage, I just sort of went in line what previous years had been and decreased that. And other expenditures, I decreased. That was the one that was the most significant decrease. And that account was set up a couple years ago. There was an instance where a house had to get emptied out. It was a hoarding situation, and the town had to pay it up front, and then there was some sort of reimbursement. And that line item just kind of kept rolling year after year, but it's really not an account that's used. So I kept the 500 in there just as a buffer in case something came up. But overall, the budget decreased $1,257. And then also under the Board of Health budget is the Neshoba Board of Health assessment, which is for the health agent and the nursing services that Neshoba provides. And I spoke with Jim Gareffi today. In the numbers that you have, it was showing as the same number as last year, but I did speak with Jim, and they had their yearly meeting last Thursday, and it's a 5% increase. So for the environmental services, it's an increase of $1,312, and the nursing services, $498. So that change, I'll give those numbers to Cheryl to have those reflected correctly. And then there's some other services that are listed under the Board of Health budget, but most of these invoices I don't process anymore. The Elliott Clinic, I think Cheryl has been processing. I haven't gotten any invoices for it. And then the SANS assessment, I know Nina, you were meeting with Mrs. Whitcomb, I think, on that, and the Board of Selectmen were going to talk about whether they were going to continue that, but those are just line items that have been in the Board of Health budget for a couple years, but we don't really do anything with that.
But some of the question was, if they belong there, should they be part of Elder and Human Services, really, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so she is kind of taking over the oversight of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Board of Health.
Any questions on Board of Health before we move? We're pretty straightforward. All right.
Okay, and then zoning is on page 86. And the number of zoning filings has increased because there has been increased zoning enforcement. So the revenue has increased, and basically this budget is just level from last year. It's the shared administrative assistants 4 hours, and then just various office expenses that are required for the public hearing notices, for office supplies, and for training for the ZBA members. So there was no change to that budget this year.
Thank you. Any questions? Right.
Okay, so building starts on 107. And so building has stayed very busy again this year. We did over 500 building permits. Probably over 2,500 inspections last year. It's just another busy, crazy year. We updated our permitting software to a new version of, it's Viewpoint Cloud now, but it's basically just an update of what we had been using since 2015. And that transition went very well. And now we're trying to get more departments to use the software because it's really set up for fire, planning, conservation, health. Janet, the administrative assistant, she has gone back and added in all the historical data for all the ZBA cases, Board of Health back a couple years. So she's starting to go backwards and build the database. So we'd really like to see more departments get on board and use that so we get more bang for the buck of the software. Last year, the price for the permitting software, it was up around $40,000 because that included the transition and the training for the new software. But now it's down back to about what it normally is, $22,000. And that fee, 7% of all building, electric, gas, plumbing fees goes into that account to cover the costs of the permitting software. So it doesn't actually, it's covered by the fees that are generated. So if more departments use it, more fee money goes into that too. So we obviously have a new building commissioner. Roland retired and we welcomed Ed last week, so it'll be good to get back on track. We had a couple crazy months.
Maybe an understatement.
So the building budget actually decreased this year just due to the change of Roland being at the top of his step and Ed coming in same grade, a couple steps lower. So that's the only staffing change. We're not really asking for any more hours. We're sort of getting along. Janet, where she's maxed out at 40 hours, can't work any more hours, so we just, prioritize and get things done as efficiently as we can. The expenses I just broke out. They went down just by $130. Just with Cheryl's recommendations, just broke them out a little bit more specific to what they're actually used for. We added a line for telephone wireless data, and that includes the building commissioner, the electrical inspector, and the gas and plumbing inspector's data plan reimbursement. So that's a new expense. And then we just broke out some of the other expenses for seminars and training, which are required to maintain the certifications and licenses. And books and materials is for code books, and that kind of changes year by year because we never know when they're going to change the code, and then we have to buy all new books. So upcoming things we're looking at, some things that we've had on hold, but we're going to be looking at over the next few months is an increase in the building department fees, increase in the electrical fees, and possibly gas and plumbing. The fees haven't been raised since 2011. And in doing a quick survey of comparable towns, we're far below what they are. And, even though we're still really busy, our revenue has decreased by about $200,000 over the past couple years. So we're still fully covering the costs of the department, but raising the fees to get more in line with other towns. And just keep that revenue coming in, because I foresee the next couple of years to still have, pretty good growth, so.
That is something you're gonna look at this year, is that what you're saying? When you come-
Yeah,
kinda
so
get
we'll,
better?
we'll make up some recommendations and then set up a time to get on the selectmen's agenda and present that for approval. And so that's basically it.
How lucky am I, huh?
Well, we are lucky, Shelley. Thank you for you and Janet for keeping us afloat.
No problem.
Well said.
Any questions, I think, right? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
We'll see you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I believe we are on to, we can do Clean Lakes now, probably, makes sense, right? Clean Lakes, your little presentation that we have. Cheryl will be giving that, and it's also on page 124 for any additional information.
Who runs this now?
Corey,
Godfrey?
Well, Water Department, yeah. Okay.
Then there's a commission as well. There's a commission as well.
Yeah.
It's been self-funded for, right?
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, everyone. The Clean Lakes budget, as many of you probably are aware, but is a self-funded through revenues from the cell towers that are located at the Littleton Water Department. The current balance right now in that fund is just over $400,000. So in FY 17, 18, and 19, the funding pretty much covered all of the town's costs for meeting the EPA permit requirements. Historically, the projects were smaller in size, which allowed the fund to build up a balance. They're anticipating potentially utilizing that funding for the Mill Pond project if it's approved. Right now, the FY21 budget is level funded at $46,000. And like I said, it's cell tower funding. And so they'll utilize that money to continue with their, herbicide treatments and comprehensive water monitoring program that they do.
The mumbling over here was we've been talking about the Mill Pond for years and years and years.
Corps of Engineers.
Huh, is that what it is?
Corps of Engineers.
Hurry up and wait, still waiting on the feasibility study. What was it, about a year ago, we kicked around some alternative dredge spoils management options, but that kind of fizzled when one of the upland landowners that would be involved.
On Taylor Street.
Yeah, I can't remember who now, but one of the upland landowners whose property would need to be involved with managing the upland spoils in a more economically viable way, decided maybe it didn't move forward. So I think that it's not completely dead, but it's on life support.
The whole project?
No, there was an option to manage some of the dredge spoils right at the
Taylor Street.
The peninsula out into Mill Pond where
the natural upland.
Oh, okay.
So they were going to manage it, but they also needed some land from Forestry Foundation. Somehow the Forestry Foundation was involved. I can't remember the specifics at this point.
All right, anyway. Okay, so we're just waiting for the next study. We're going to wait, like you said, okay. Okay.
Any questions on Clean Lakes?
That's it.
That's it. Oh, there was just one slide on Clean Lakes. Oh, this is cool.
The rest of the other budgets I'm presenting.
We can talk about Mill Pond more.
No, actually, I have a quick question about Clean Lakes. So, is the cost for handling MS4 permitting is all under highway, or is that done by Clean Lakes too?
I believe it's under highway.
That's under highway, okay. Then I'll save those questions for Chris.
What was the question?
MS4 permitting.
Oh, okay.
Because that's going to continue to grow, and I wasn't sure where that lived.
I don't have any questions. Let's move on to where are we at? IT? This next one.
Accounting?
IT.
IT is.
Page 1. No.
68.
Say page 68.
Sorry, yeah, don't move anything. I know, I'll try.
It's a challenge.
Then we'll move people up in the schedule.
Yeah, right. So just a little bit of a high-level overview on the IT department. In FY19, they did have increased staffing which include one additional FTE to the IT department, which has allowed them to really service people in a more timely and efficient manner. They service all the town departments here, and as staff is increasing, new buildings, more technology, more IT support services are needed and required from them. And the other big thing that they're really working on is, mobile services, remote services creates a whole nother level of IT support that they now have to think about those changes and security and try and stay on top of that. So the IT budget actually had a number of kind of changes. The IT director did a really great job of going in, looking at the budget, really figuring out what was necessary, and reconfiguring the budget a little bit. Overall, the budget's increasing by 1.44%, so small. The expenses are only going up less than 1% in totality. So there were kind of a number of factors in that. One of the things is that there was $15,000 built into the IT budget for training, and we moved that into the HR budget training line. I think you might recall, but I think one of my first meetings here, some of the Munis modules, it said, weren't worth the cost, or we weren't using them, and so we dropped them. So that has a cost savings of $13,000. So that line, that she had a monthly backup that she was doing that was actually duplicative. So we're saving about $12,000 there by eliminating that.
Nice.
And then just some other, small changes, eliminating a wireless router we don't need, and, kind of changing some of the technology or some of the changes that had some cost savings on the IT side. Some of the things that she's added into the budget for IT is some monthly vulnerability scanning, which is very important to the town and the network. Previously, Light and Water was actually in charge of renewing our wireless access points, but now that's going to be on the town side of the budget. We're now moving to a cloud-based 365, which is an increased cost, but also allows us to eliminate 2 of our actual physical servers here, which will have a future effect on capital needs and not needing them to replace them. And it also makes sure that we're always staying on the latest version of 365, so we're not constantly having to buy the next version and upgrade that. We did purchase fixed asset software this year for $400, but we had eliminated a fixed asset module in Munis that was triple the cost. And then they're doing some changes to the work order software for DPW. They're still going to keep C-Click Fix for a portion of it, the citizen portion, so they'll still have that, but there's a savings now that they're shifting away from part of C-Click Fix and this new work order software.
Is that just for their internal workflow then? So the external, as far as community members?
That's staying the same. Yep. And another big cost for the IT department are our printers. The IT director is constantly looking at leasing and buying and what's the better option, but they are expensive. And so they're going up about $4,000 as we add kind of some larger machines to different departments. Something I did want to highlight that the IT director took on this year is the auditing firm offers a free service to have all of our wireless plans audited to see if we're paying for things we shouldn't be. Plans are, we could get better plans. And so they went through that process, and actually there was minimal cost savings, which was nice. Now, there's a few little points here or there that we were able to see, nothing of any significant value, but it's just something good that, again, it's a free service to us, and it's something good to kind of keep doing, and we did do that.
So evaluating the copiers, is it still more cost-effective to lease versus purchasing?
It is right now, but,
And the schools on this lease as well? Or do they have their own budget for the?
it's not in our IT budget.
It's not? Okay.
No.
That's what I have, right?
No.
They have their own?
They have their own. I think they lease the majority as well, too, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it seems to be the case. Leasing's usually less expensive. Maintenance and things like that.
Right.
They go obsolete pretty quick.
That's the big issue. I mean, the one thing with the leasing is you end up paying per page. So that
charges.
Right, so that can kind of add up, but to your point, they become obsolete so quickly to purchase them. It doesn't
make sense.
Always make sense.
Agreed.
Any questions on IT?
Sounds like a lot of good work's being done there.
This is a generic question. I don't expect you guys to have an answer.
Then why ask it?
Sorry. But it falls under IT. Insurance coverage for things like cyber attacks and stuff like that. I think it's something that we need to look into. I don't know if that goes in the IT budget or where it lives.
We do have it.
We have it.
We do, okay.
And I will say, we met with our insurance company recently, and they indicated that it's standard in their policies currently.
Okay.
But at some point, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryl, with my recollection, at some point they're going to start offering it as a charge to communities.
Okay.
Well, then you did have the answer for it.
I did, yeah.
That was
That's a good question.
I thought that was a pretty esoteric question. I'm amazed that you guys have an answer.
Any other questions on IT before we go into accounting?
Accounting?
Accounting.
53.
So I thought I'm sure you all probably know what we do, but I think sometimes it's helpful to remind people that accounting isn't just, debits and credits.
by the door, debits by the window.
Debits, credits, liabilities.
Right, exactly. So, and there's been a lot of change in the accounting office. Munis has required accounting to really change how we do things in a good way. So, and one of the big things now is now that Munis has been rolled out is that we do all the training and support for all the users on Munis, town and school. And that's a large amount of time. We do, as you know, we do everything related to the general ledger. So journal entries, additions, creation of accounts. So every time we have a town meeting, we have to record all the articles, add new accounts, move the money around. It's actually fairly time consuming. No, I don't think I realized that actually is how time consuming it was when I was in the town accountant. We do the AP warrants, as you all know. We coordinate all budgetary and financial information. We do forecasting, modeling, analyzing different scenarios for any number of current and future town projects. We do all the state reporting requirements for free cash certification, balance sheet, tax rate recap. We manage the annual audit, which is also a fairly time-consuming process between providing them all the reports that they need, answering all of their questions, their follow-up. It kind of goes in ebbs and flows, but it's over 6 months that we are, involved with the auditors, bringing them in, coordinating when they're here for field work and spending time with them. Any of the new modules that we want to roll out in Munis, we're, in charge of that. Any enhancements, upgrades, we do all the support and testing for that as well. We manage the town's property and liability insurance, which is why we knew about the cybersecurity. And, a lot of work with just department heads, boards, committees that come with questions that need advice or guidance, or they ask a question and I end up down a rabbit hole of researching.
Sorry.
And interpreting, MGL a lot for boards and committees. So that's just a high level overview of kind of what we do in the accounting group. So as far as FY19, which I really can't take any credit for, unfortunately, but the finance team did a phenomenal job implementing Munis and training and supporting the department heads through that transition. Something I wanted to highlight with this is that implementation required the finance office staff in FY19 alone to work over 2,400 hours above their standard work week. So, I mean, that was a big undertaking for them. I want to make sure that they're commended for that. One thing that we're doing is trying to, address some of the things that have been brought up in the finance department assessment since I've been here. So, really trying to rein in management of grants, understanding grants, make sure we're getting the paperwork for them, accounting for them appropriately. Documentation, we're, documenting pretty much anything and everything that we're doing, and increasing control. So now if I enter a journal entry, then the assistant town accountant has to approve it. I have to give her all the documentation. So we're adding lots of steps and layers to things, which helps mitigate risk, but just, adds more complexity and time to something that used to be quite simple. And we're also requiring department heads sign off for those so that department heads know when we're having, if something got charged to the wrong account, say, hey, by the way, this got charged, we have to move it. So they're aware of this, so that, the last thing I want is department head ever saying, I don't know why that was charged there or why you moved that there. I'm trying to make sure that they're kind of in the know on all that stuff. Just to give you a sense of the difference of kind of our group now that we have Munis versus when we were on SoftWrite. In SoftWrite in 18, we had about 2,600 accounts we maintained. Now we have 6,900 accounts that we maintain in the accounting office. And for journal entries in 18 in SoftWrite, they processed and inputted about 2,500 journal entries. In FY19, it was about 5,600.
Why?
Because the way the accounts are now set up, we have
more accounts.
We have more accounts. We have more control accounts, and there's more steps. So it's not just things follow a much more a path.
More traceable.
Yes. So, that adds more work, but is important.
It also gives you a much better narrative.
Well, and it's easier. It's a little bit easier now to see. Especially as things kind of ebb and flow and, you transfer money to pay this bond debt from this fund, we can follow it.
I think just from looking at the change in the warrants alone, we can see peripherally where there's impacts. And we know where $350 is being spent by whatever department.
Right.
To some degree.
Right.
Much deeper degree. It's appreciated.
Thank you. And, as new employees come on board, whether they're new FTEs or just new employees, it's pretty time intensive for us to set them up in Munis, make sure they have the right permissionings, the right roles, making sure their workflows are working correctly, which the workflows are great. I mean, I don't know many communities actually use workflows as well as Littleton does. But it's just, some setup time now. We have it's called a month-end manager in Munis. Again, it's another control. It allows us to close the month so other people can't backdate or to post to those months. But in order to do that, if things are kind of hanging out there, like a PO's hanging out there that hasn't been approved or any of that stuff, we have to resolve it. So that requires us reaching out, figuring out what the issue is, trying to move it along so we can close those months. But it's a really important part of Munis that, again, allows us to make sure that, again, nothing's getting backdated in the system.
So in theory, Cheryl, that all of that effort that's being put in on a monthly basis will help you on a quarterly basis, which will in turn help you on an annual basis. So
Yes.
because all that work's being put in throughout the year, it gives us a better snapshot as well.
Right. And I would say the nice thing too with some of the warrant reports that we're now providing too, it allows us to recognize again, oh, wait a minute, should that have been charged to that account rather than getting near the end of the year and saying, well, geez, why are they running out of budget? And then you say, oh, these, invoices should have been charged to office supplies, not travel, or whatever it might be. So that's also helpful, so that hopefully when we get down to the end of the year, we're not having to do a lot of that type of cleanup per se.
Well done.
So as far as the accounting budget, it's $228,000, which is about 0.04% of your total operating budget.
Some sales experience as well?
Basically saying, leave it alone, we're down a little bit.
Our budget also did decrease, not that I can take much credit for that, but it did decrease compared to FY20 by 3%. But it is in line with the FY19 budget. Salaries are increasing by about $23,000. That's a combination of just standard steps and COLA, but longevity, which was originally, I don't know if you recall, a line under employee benefits, we've now moved that into all the departmental budgets. So that's now been shifted into our budget, as it has for others as well too. And then there's a request that I have to increase the hours for the part-time finance technician person from 10 to 19 at a cost of about $12,000. That position originally was more administrative in nature, and as the needs have changed for the accounting department, it's turning into much more of a technical position. It also will allow a little bit more resiliency in the accounting department to have 10 hours isn't enough to give a true backup to the assistant town accountant and what she does. The finance technician has been at 10 for quite some time, even though the volume of the work has increased for the office. And then the other piece is that I'm requesting for an intern for $6,000 for about 12 weeks. And they would be helping prepare for the audit, sending some of the reports to the auditors or starting some of the prep work. We have to pull a lot of things for them sometimes. We have some process documents in accounting. We need a lot more. And the ones we have need some significant updates. And that's a project I really would like to take on, and we just don't have the bandwidth right now.
So that's what using intern also for?
Kind of help with that. And then, just have them learn the AP process. So I had an intern when I was in Swampscott, and it was great. I mean, it was a great help to us. And it was great to really kind of show people who are in college what municipal finance world is all about.
So is that like a summer job, or they work part-time during the school year, or what?
It could be either or, summer or part-time.
Okay.
Whatever works, really, for us. As far as our expenses, they're decreasing, but that's really not a real decrease. The main, it is, but the main factor in that decrease was that you had interim town accountant services before I came in, which was, far more expensive than me. No, just kidding.
So those professional services will continue to decline then, even beyond 21?
So right now I have professional services funding at 16.5.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm not quite sure if that's gonna stay the same or if that will decrease. I think, ultimately what I'm trying to do is find the right staffing model for the department without adding a benefit eligible individual. And so I'm trying to find the right mix of, using some outside resources and increasing some hours.
And the reality is, we're losing two very tenured, talented individuals, and we'll need, we won't name the actual professional services consulting firm. We may in fact need some professional services to help us transition away from.
There's some money in the
Council, right, support council.
So there's $1,000 in there for conferences. One of my goals is to become a certified governmental accountant. I've passed the legal portion thus far. Hopefully I'll be taking the practical portion this year. And so making sure that I go to the UMass accounting school, which is, even if you weren't doing the certification, that's our main education conference. And it's just important for us to stay up to date on what's going on in the municipal world, because pretty much anything that is changing has a financial impact. And, the marijuana and the HCAs with marijuana and how you deal with those and where's the appropriate place to put them. And there is thoughts of having another municipal modernization act. That's probably not in the next 12 months, but that will impact us. We'll learn how that changes how we do things as well too.
I'm assuming that for your professional development alone, most of that $1,000 will be eaten up. Just for that program you're talking about, it's going to be, I'm assuming it's going to be pretty close to $1,000. Is that, I hate to increase anybody's budget, but is $1,500 a more practical or reasonable number for that, so that your staff has an opportunity to attend certain programs, or? Yeah,
so I have built in, for her to, the assistant county accountant, to go to the fall conference and a couple other programming as well too. The UMass Education Conference is fairly reasonable, and so you'll notice that I have conferences separate from travel, and so the conferences are just literally the registration fees, and so travel increased fairly significant, and that's for my hotel, my mileage, and my meals there, which is far away the actual meeting registration fee. So I think, from my perspective, combining the two gives us enough room to be able to do what we want to do professionally. In having the other bonuses, if the HR training budget is approved, that, while it's not accounting related, that allows us to then, have Excel classes, which is something that had been requested from and we can do that holistically. So I feel like it's a fair in it.
Okay. Put your checkbook away, Chuck.
I appreciate it, though.
But I also appreciate, we're getting some very real numbers and some very good numbers, descriptions behind the numbers, so I just want to make sure that you're not trying to be too kind and too, not self-serving enough, I guess. So if the number needs to be a little bit higher, this is really the best time for us to roll it in.
And I will say that it's, so in building the budget, I really had to go more so based off my own experience, and it was hard to try and figure out what the accounting budget in the town of Littleton should really look like, and trying to figure out what had been done in the past. And so I was trying to be cognizant of seeing how much the budget, especially the expense side of the budget is growing comparatively. And I think, as I've said before, this is my best guess. I think it's a fairly solid guess, but it is my best guess.
So you get another year under your belt to be able to fine tune that and get a better feel for what's
exactly.
going on.
And so, what I will say is maybe you're right, and maybe I need $1,200 for conferences. Well, then, sorry, Steve, professional services, I won't spend as much there.
Get out of the inside of the business.
So much for that
consultant. Negotiate lower rates.
Divide and conquer here.
Yeah. And professional development for myself and the staff is very important, and so I think that there's always things that you can put off to make sure that that's happening. Office supplies decreased. I mean, I just went based off what we really need. Historically, other things like travel had been charged there, like I said, travel's increased. That does include one individual going to the user conference from my group. And then our dues and subscriptions, decreased to reflect, really what we need. So just to wrap it up, how we do business has changed significantly. We still have quite a few cleanup projects. Every time I feel like I get a question from someone saying, so we used to spend money on this. Can you find out how much we have left here and what we did with this money? I end up down a rabbit hole where I'm bumping into something that I need to clean up. So that seems to be at least a weekly occurrence, and they're just kind of piling up on my desk at this point. They're things I know I need to clean up, but I just don't have a chance to. The recommendations in the finance department assessment, that's really important for me to implement them, but right now we don't have the bandwidth. Like I said before, we are utilized as a resource for a lot of people within town hall and outside of town hall for questions or whatever I might do.
We're guilty. Don't do that.
So any other questions about the accounting budget or any of the other information I presented thus far?
Nice job with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. I mean, just the format and it's been easier, I think, for me at least, to digest and to be able to ask hopefully some relatively intelligent questions. But really appreciate the effort in getting the book well in advance of Super Saturday and this whole process. Thanks to Gary and to Cheryl and everybody that was involved in the process. Not Joe too, I guess a little bit.
Any questions on accounting?
So accounting does have a capital article.
Right. You do. Go ahead.
I put in a request to redo the chart of accounts for $60,000, which there might be the potential for a community compact if the project is chosen by the requisite boards. And that is to redo the entire chart of accounts. And I don't know if you recall, but it was mentioned in the finance department assessment. It doesn't follow UMIS. It's time consuming to try and find anything in there. Things are muddled together. It makes it hard to do state reporting. It makes it hard to do other types of reporting.
And this was all redone when the munis went in, right?
It was done, yes.
It was done.
It was done.
We didn't bring over the old chart of accounts. It was a new chart of accounts then, right? Yeah, okay. Move on.
So a chart of accounts are a very complicated, complex project, and so if an individual is trying to do them sitting in my seat today, it's almost impossible. You really do need the outside resources to do them appropriately and effectively. So
because they have visibility to how other places do it, or because they have the time to focus on it, or what?
It's the time.
It's the time to focus on it most of the time.
It's most of the time, but also it's trying to map out, like we said, we have 5,000 accounts, and map them out appropriately. It does take someone who's been kind of immersed in that world for a long time to be able to do that. So a number of other communities are actually redoing their chart of accounts, and a number of them are hiring outside individuals to do it, so they don't end up in a situation where they need to redo it a few years later. That's it.
for that nice
Do you
presentation.
end up with less account numbers at the end of that? Would you expect to have less account numbers at the end of that, or not necessarily? Just better organized.
Better organized. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's our budget portion for tonight. I wanted to talk real quickly about Saturday the 1st. So, you know, as I look at, we give it an hour for each of the big departments to come in the morning. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. I can't, you know, some, maybe one will, but I don't think so. So I actually was going to ask, I want to talk to Joe about, so we'll run this, but I also want to post, I would like to know if you guys would post another meeting, a second meeting for a working group during, you know, it'd be like a working lunch, if you will, where our two boards are still there, we're together, and...
Like a summit?
Yeah, we finished this. At that point, we will have, yep, and then we're not running into March with
It's
all
all
these.
fresh in our minds.
Right,
Yeah.
and we're right there, we're already there, and we can, you know, we can.
Yeah, well, I put off making the hard decisions.
And Paul, I know Paul had mentioned, you know, Board of Selectmen priorities and things like that. Well, we're gonna get it. We can sit there as a finance team, and we can hear a lot of those things reiterated. Okay, well, that wasn't, so, and that's gonna help, you know, move these things around, and I think we can come out of there with a balanced.
Or at least a broad understanding of, okay, we've got to tighten it up here, or.
Now,
leave this.
I'm going to say that that's, a working group means that we're all sitting here with notebooks and we're working on papers. It's not conducive to television, so that's why I wanted to post a second meeting, because the first, obviously the morning meeting with this stuff is going to be taped, but that second meeting won't be, it'll be an open meeting, obviously, people can come in, but it does not make for good television. We're all talking, sitting here.
Is it high def at the police station?
So I think it's more.
We need someone to take minutes.
It makes more sense to make those tough decisions and discussions, and if people want to come in, absolutely, obviously, it's an open meeting. We are going to post, but I think to put that on television would be, it would sound like a bunch of nothingness that anybody, we're not.
Even more than usual.
For it. We're sitting around really knocking out numbers and getting.
There's a lot of sidebars going on. And
correct, and I don't want the distractions, I think it's important, and I just wanted to get your guys' feel on doing that. It would require a second, you know, so we're posting for the morning meeting, like this, it's already here.
We just would have to do a time certain.
And then we would do a joint board, you know, meeting for a working group to resolve.
Oh, after lunch, take a break and.
Yeah, and whether that's, you know.
So you're gonna make it into a whole day?
It's not going, if we're not out of there by early afternoon, we've done something wrong. I truly believe that. I think we've.
And we have Wilson to blame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the time. This
has nothing to do with you, this is all Cheryl.
Fair enough.
Touche.
He knows what he's beat.
I like him less and less. So, just what are you guys' thoughts on that? I mean,
I like it.
I think it's important that we don't have to, I know last year I was a little frustrated, as I think you all were, you know, were at the last minute trying to iron out capital. Who's gonna get a carpet, who's gonna get a, I think we can resolve all that right after we know. And, you know, you used a whiteboard a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
Now that can actually mean something, we can actually address it. Well, here's the big capital items.
Right.
Let's get in and really start working through these and see what we can and can't.
Some of those big inflatable boxing gloves.
Yeah, it might come to that, right?
It also gives us the opportunity to, if we're lacking clarity on something, to put it on a maybe list and go get that clarity and resolve it when we're not under the gun.
Yeah, I expect to have, you're right, it's gonna be, something's gonna come up, we're gonna be like, well, yeah, we're gonna have to talk to that department, and they're gonna need to come back and talk to us.
Oh, we only touched on that for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
maybe we need to know more.
When it gets down to the final, you know, we're trying to move things.
Where do we draw the line?
Who was going to get blue cargo?
Yeah. I think the police station was.
Yeah, it was a station.
Well, I think he got
That's
it.
crazy.
So, anyway, just something to think about.
It's a good idea.
If that works, we'll do it. If that works for you, I think we talked about it. It's a good recommendation, and I think and this, hopefully, if it doesn't work, next year we'll see what works. We can even iron it out even more and make this even more streamlined.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
You know, I think this part of it, I think, has become more efficient, but I think, you know, I take some credence into what Paul, Selectman Glavy said about front-loading. I think we can get better at the September, August. Now, I know we had a very difficult year with some, new members coming on, but I think we can really start working on that so that these meetings become even easier because we have a more clear understanding of exactly what you were.
Right, this is already aligned with
Yeah,
stated priorities.
Right, because it's going to change with the new board, and board members are going to have new priorities. All right, with that being said, is that something, we don't need it.
So we just post something for 12:30 or 1 o'clock? Post the second meeting?
It'll be right after this. Now, that's interesting.
Overlap it a little bit in case.
Yeah, because you really can't.
I think you posted for 1 o'clock.
What if you want to start sooner? That's the
Yeah.
question.
What if you want to start, you can't start sooner?
Right, so I think we should,
You can start it later, so post it for 12:30.
Yeah.
We also have a few minutes of business to handle with school.
That's true on here.
I mean, it's gonna be a 15-minute thing.
Well, that's the thing, we can still talk, at this one, we can still talk about all of this. It's just when we're getting down into the weeds, I think we need to, okay, let's open up another meeting to really change how the
So I think
format.
you post it for 12:30, and then if it starts later than that, so be it, but
Okay.
yeah.
And then we have, and if we do get out, if this only goes till 10:30, we
adjourn.
can either jump into it, or we can adjourn, go to lunch, or whatever we want to do, decide. Gives us time to,
The other alternative is just post it on one agenda.
yeah.
And
Just turn the
just,
cameras off?
yeah, but make that clear on the agenda, so that it's, right.
Yeah, it's not executive
Not-
session, though.
Not
It's very low
televised,
def.
working group,
Because it's-
come see us in person.
I mean, having the, I want,
Audio cassette.
I think it's important now the department had seen and present their budgets, but what comes after that is, like I said, we're sitting around with notebooks and papers and typing,
Right.
and it's not, it doesn't make any sense to tell us
Right.
now. If department heads want to be in the room when we're discussing these things, sure, to a clarification, or any citizens in the town, but I think we can have a much more productive working group now.
I agree.
But the expectation is department heads aren't, department heads are not expected to be there.
No, absolutely not, but I could see if there's something really important that one of the departments, they might want to be in the room, because when we're making those final decisions.
Well, they've made their pitch, at this point, so now it's.
So all we need now is clarification, coming out of that meeting, we might need some clarification, I think. That works.
So we need a suggestion in terms of the minute, or the
Yeah,
agenda.
I think we can do it
That's a
then.
good way to do it.
Yeah, just let me know what you.
That way, I mean, we can always write on the agenda that the times may vary, and that way we can be
Yeah.
as flexible, it will make it as flexible for us as possible.
I want to talk to Diane about it too, make sure we have everything.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, okay.
Are we looking to take a break for lunch? Is that the objective?
It's tricky, like I said, if we.
If we're done at 11:30.
Eat work, I mean, let's just
Yeah,
punch it
working
out.
lunch.
Yeah, get through that. I think we're still gonna be out of there. I think that maybe.
Hold me to that.
Yeah, I think we still may be out of there at 12:30. I just think that those 4 departments, we're giving them each an hour, but I can see a half hour might make more sense to a couple of them. I can see the schools for sure, half our budget, right? But I think that
I like the way you set this up, and kind of the goal, as I understood, was to make the day a lot shorter, because it gets long. I mean, you get to 2:30, 3 o'clock, and everybody's like, I'm done with this.
Right.
So I love the format, but adding on the planning session afterwards, I think is good, as long as it's productive.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think if we can come out of there with a clear understanding of, maybe we're down to 1 or 2 items that BOS needs to really, here's what we're left with, is it gonna be this or this?
I think
Maybe
it's
you
gonna
give the department heads one more pitch to come in and really talk about it if you need clarification at a later date.
I think it's gonna be far more productive, just because it's fresh in our minds, and to try to get us all in the room again.
No, you're right. No, I don't disagree with that at all. No, I think it's good.
But to your point, Greg, if we get to a point where we're just talking in circles, I think we should be willing to say, you know what? Okay, we've laid it all on the table, let's ruminate on it and come back.
And I think what you said too is that some of these departments aren't gonna take an hour.
Right, but I still think we're gonna be out there close to that time, I really do, but. I mean, but this is all, we've been working on this a while, and this is much more clarity than we had last year and previous years, I think.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Much more clear, to me at least.
Don't worry, Gary, we'll make sure that the temperature starts dropping in that room at about 2 o'clock.
There you go.
All right, looking for a motion.
No, Mitch,
Oh,
Mitch,
George.
Mitch.
Second.
Oh.
CBC.
Oh, CBC showed up, I'm sorry. Did we even
Oh,
catch
Susan
that?
and CPC.
You thought you were in the middle, but you're at the end.
Look at it. Wasn't on my older agenda. I had my older
It was
agenda.
on the revised agenda.
That's why, I'm
It's not
sorry.
on this one.
Let's get you, well, we talked all around you there for a minute, okay.
I already shut down, man, so good luck.
Oh, well, sorry.
I heard you talking about
Very
taking a break
adjourned,
from
yeah.
lunch,
We're
and
still
I thought, wow, this could go on a long, long
We're
time.
good. Well, welcome.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Oh,
CBC.
great. I'll be fairly brief. I just have sort of two sort of strategic points to mention. I'm not really prepared to talk numbers tonight, although I am confident that we had a meeting recently, and it was a pleasure to have you, Cheryl, attend our meeting, and I just want to say my hat's off to you and others at Town Hall. You made a real effort to get your head around CPA, and we all learned something in our meeting last week around budgeting, around the CPA law itself, and also sort of some forward-looking thinking around how we can, well, sort of some of the constraints that we're operating under in terms of how we can, how we look at money. That CPA is, as you know, the revenue into the CP fund in town is not exclusively the 1% real estate tax surcharge. On those occasions when we're able to do blended funds, we need to find outside sources of revenue well, okay, my first point, I said I'd be quick. The one thing is that through some brainstorming and some hoping and wishing, we figured, well, maybe we could make some revenue streams in town that would serve us to, over a long period of time, or a number of years in a row, allow us to accumulate some money, and then that could be counted as blended funds. That seems very unlikely in terms of the constraints of the law, that we'd have to operate, if we wanted to do blended fund years, in other words, try to make up enough revenue to reach a higher threshold of income. So instead of 1% real estate tax surcharge, we'd be at a 2% or 3% equivalent. That would have to be episodic only on a 1 or 2 year time frame. We'd have to plan for it and find the money. It would be cash, I think, is the simplest way to call it in the town's budget. Whatever is in our coffers that could be considered cash is available. Of course, cash is liquid and ready for spending by anybody through any means given the circumstances. I guess the point I would like to make is that you'd want to partner this with your any capital planning that you do. That if you're counting on community preservation funds for targeted areas that that is likely to be an allowable spending, that since capital spending has a well-defined map by departments, you'd want to sort of be able to best leverage the money so that you could plan those episodes, if you will, when we could try to leverage blended funds. I think a good example of that would be recreation, which is allowable under the amended Community Preservation Act, and the capital spending plan, also presented at our meeting last week, outlines many projects. It was 2 or 3 pages from the Parks and Rec Department outlining various projects that they hope to do. Some on a timeline, many not. Some with price tags, a few with not, but a few of them went over $100,000 easily. So my hope would be that when something comes to sort of the top of the list, for example in recreation, that you check with us and see if it's on a scale that is doable. We couldn't come close to funding all their wish list, nor would I think the town stomach it, even if apart from CPC matters.
they'd have to take it, prioritized and reasonable and informed about what the public wants. But when you find a project that you think is at the top of the list, if it seems like it makes sense to get community preservation funds for it, that it would take a year or two to sort of make it, so long as it's, if it were more than $50,000, or if it's on that scale where we'd need to leverage blended funds, our savings ebb and flow over time. Typically, we spend down our savings on medium-sized projects within a 1 to 5 year time frame. And I'll get to that in a second with historic as an example. But just the list of the capital spending wish list, if you will, if you want to call it that, forgive me if it doesn't seem a smart term for it, but that the Parks and Rec Department certainly would need some help to get some of those projects through. So to leverage blended funds, again, would take a little time to plan it, and I think with help of the finance office at Town Hall, and then some planning through, of course, the Fincom and the Board of Selectmen to try and see if it would make sense to move funds over when it comes available. We did that in the recent past, 2 or 3 years ago. The Board of Selectmen got us over a hurdle so that we were able to use blended funds in that year. But since then, we're back to pretty much the 1% real estate tax surcharge as our sole income. If we stayed at that level, this is my second point, if we just took the 1% revenue, we could operate, our committee would entertain all sorts of projects, but they'd be medium to small size. And for the medium-sized ones, we'd need to build up some savings over time. An example of that is around historic projects. Historic resources have had every year a number of small projects, cemetery work and stuff like that, but it really took a concerted effort to save some money, and like I said, with the Board of Selectmen's help, to buy the Robinson Roadhouse. That is not something that we could do unless we were using blended funds more than once every 10 years, because we want to keep doing smaller projects, but we also need the savings to accumulate, and the mechanisms for savings is really just by category a fraction of our revenue split into 4 different pieces.
Yes, I just had a question on that. I'm trying to think, is that, so splitting these into the 4 different buckets, that policy, I mean, I understand why it's done, but historically, is one of these being used a lot more than the others? Should there be a relook at how this money gets distributed in that, and what's the mechanism, perhaps, to make that happen? I mean, every community changes, ebbs and flows, and I was just curious if equal distribution in those 4 buckets.
You have to put minimums in each one, and then the rest is with the
blended,
blended, which gives you more options and more flexibility. If you put it all, designated all in one bucket, it's got to go to that bucket.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Correct.
The blended can be used for anything across.
You can't move it out of one bucket.
No, we're talking about 2 different things. Maybe the blended funds refers to how revenue comes in,
right,
and then
undesignated.
The designation as to allowable spending is constrained by the 10-10-10 rule, and that's 10% for each of 3 categories. And then so the law says that we have to do just that at a minimum. Now our savings and spendings plan, each year annually we vote on a strategy for what we see as where we'd like our money to go, and then that becomes our budget and gets approved at town meeting. And typically that's more like 20, 20, 20, 45 or something. I don't know if that adds up to 100, but it would mean that that the largest category in that case would be open space, which annually we talk about it being the one that we really want to save up the most for, because typically those kinds of projects have the highest price tag, although they're less frequent. So that's strategic planning on our part. Also, as part of our goal to ensure that we do save stuff, that's in that we save money because our revenue comes in annually. We don't want it always to bounce back into undesignated category. We want to do a little bookkeeping so that we can remember what our position was at the time when that revenue came in, even if we're not spending it out.
Oh, so you are earmarking all the money then? You're not leaving it undesignated?
By bookkeeping, I think it stays in different
buckets?
pots, yeah.
So there is money in undesignated, there's a lot of money in undesignated.
Yeah, there is.
But you have it earmarked for something?
No, when we spend it, we want to know how it got used.
Yeah, and that's what should be getting briefed here. I think it's part of this group.
And that's partly to your point, right? Are we consistently spending the undesignated on a particular community priority?
Which has been open space historically, absolutely.
Well, actually,
early on.
It's the undesignated category. It has grown over time. Yeah. But if we followed if we left it on, if we spent it, I think there's $500,000 there. If we spent it in the coming year, that would go to zero. And by our current savings and spending plan, we wouldn't refill that category. We would be maintaining the other four, which is recreation, housing, historic resources, and open space. So our strategic savings are 100% divided into four categories. That said, we talked about, well, wouldn't it be nice to have, we don't mind having undesignated money because when people petition us for the rationale for a given project, we're easily won over by it. I think a point that everybody in the room should keep in mind, though, is that we can, through, and we have well documented in the past, through partnerships, if we can make arrangements, and earmarking something might not be the right word for it or whatever, but knowing that our board will take a vote on it, if we gain revenue through town hall's efforts, we will respect where that money came from. If it's deliberately obtained through, say,
to be used for
X, exactly, and that's like I said, there's a track record for that.
So the concept is, if Park and Rec, for example, had some capital project, you say, well, if we do the blended funds, the whole idea of that, of course, is a state match. And of course, it's not as big as it used to be, but that's why you would do that. You put in to get the state match, and then you pay for it through there, because now you get the state to pay for part of it versus straight out of the capital plan.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be as easy to do as it's been in the past, because that extra money came out of the undesignated funds.
Right.
Which is half,
or some
are going to be
hosted agreements and some other things that we're now learning maybe we shouldn't have done anyway. Right, Cheryl?
However, if I understand what you're saying, if we took a Park and Rec project that's going to cost $80,000, and we only have 50, and we put the 50 into CPC, and you had the other 30 the next year, that you could do the whole project through CPC?
That's what you're talking about, potentially.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, we could pick up some blended funds along the way, right? So if we round trip it, we actually.
So that's what you're getting at, that that's perfectly legitimate to do.
Maximize the match.
Yes.
Then your time was not wasted here.
No, I learned something. I didn't.
Well, and Cheryl can help you with the timing of it too, because the state match doesn't come through for another year, I think.
But you're talking, we plan ahead.
Yep, and we also have stuff that's saved by category, so it could be, and it would be nice too to have that kind of partnership. The way you said it, that it would be like we're providing the bulk of it, you have some that you've already saved by that category, and then it's a bonus that the state kicks in. That's the reason for doing it. Otherwise we and I think that's the reason for the Community Preservation Act amendment. It helped motivate towns like ours, although I think we might still be the only ones doing it, who are trying to take opportunities to
Maximize.
To like do
Yeah.
some bookkeeping maneuvers to get the money where it needs to be, knowing that we'll spend it on this or that.
Now, when was the last time you briefed Board of Selectmen? Have you guys been briefed this year?
From the CPC?
Not on CPC that I recall recently.
I think
maybe last spring.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
No, I just think it's a good thing, maybe, even if it's outside of this exact forum, to see a couple slides on here's what we did this year. I think it's good to get it out there.
But you
Yeah,
vote
that's
on it in
true.
town meeting, because they can't spend any
Right.
money without it being
Right.
voted on.
Oh,
Okay,
correct,
so-
but to see that it
Just had a
actually,
summary,
this is,
right.
What's it looking like?
Right.
this is where it is. But
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Now back to that lunch discussion.
You interrupted. I apologize, thank you. All right, so meeting, will come to a close now. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Done. Thank you.